welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, you're joining us for a really fascinating exploration. It was sparked by one of you, actually, a listener interested in future living, future tech.
That's right, and we're going deep, literally.
Exactly. We're investigating the whole concept of subterranean eco-cities. How would you design them, build them, keep them running, maybe even as a sort of response to big global events?
Yeah, and we've pulled together some interesting source material for this. We've got conceptual documents, discussions about the tech involved, like AI, VR.
Oh, yeah, the tech is huge here.
Absolutely. And material science, too, looking specifically at geological info from North Stradbroke Island in Australia, plus some, well, pretty imaginative ideas about underground transport and computers.
So our mission today is basically to unpack this vision. What's the core idea? Why is it compelling? And crucially, what are the practical hurdles?
Let's get into it.
Okay, the core vision then. Subterranean eco-cities. It boils down to building self-sustaining cities underground.
Right. And the motivation, it seems, goes beyond just like disaster preparedness, though that's definitely part of it.
Yeah, they talk about safeguarding civilization from surface stuff. Could be sudden, like a solar micronova, which is, wow.
Yeah.
Or slower things like climate change.
It's about building resilience, creating these highly controlled living spaces. And they use this phrase, joyful, responsible abundance.
That phrase really stuck out to me too. Joyful, responsible abundance.
Yeah.
What does that actually look like in practice, beyond just having enough food and shelter?
Yeah.
How do you get the joyful part in an underground city?
Well, the idea seems to be that if you manage resources so efficiently using AI, closed loops, all that, scarcity isn't the main driver anymore.
Okay.
So you've got like optimized local food from auto farms, super efficient recycling, energy independence. That's the abundance. But it's tied to looking after that closed environment. That's the responsible bit.
Right, so living well, but within the means of the system you've built.
Exactly. Thriving within limits, even if those limits are, the walls of your underground city.
And the scale they're thinking about, it varies, doesn't it? Some ideas are more sort of localized cities, maybe near existing ones.
Yeah, maybe connected to existing population centers, which could make sense for transitions, maybe keeping some surface links active.
But then there are these bigger ideas, like a crystal city capital under Quandamuca country, North Stradbroke Island. That's a massive leap, isn't it? A purpose-built underground capital.
It really is. It shows the long-term ambition here. And that specific location, North Stradbroke Island, or Minjerribah, its indigenous name, that choice isn't random.
No, the sources really highlight its resources.
No, minerals. Right.
Yeah, it's surprisingly rich.
Yeah.
Things like quartz, ilmenite, rutile, zircon, monazite. Now, these aren't just, sand. Quartz is key.
For construction.
Partly, yeah, but also it's the source of silicon for computer chips.
Ah, okay. So having that locally could be a huge advantage for building their own tech infrastructure, less reliant on outside supply chains. Exactly. And if you connect that dot, choosing that specific island, it seems quite strategic. You've got the minerals for the tech foundation.
And the documents also stress respecting the indigenous heritage, right?
Yeah.
Keeping it sacred land for the Quandamuca people.
They do. It suggests this model where, maybe advanced civilization doesn't just roll over everything. It tries to develop carefully, respecting the existing context, using local resources as the base.
That's a really interesting angle. Sustainability in a broader sense, not just environmental, but cultural too.
Yeah, it hints at a way where maybe tech progress and heritage respect could potentially work together.
Okay, so let's talk building. How do you actually construct these things? It's not just digging a big basement, I assume?
No, definitely not. We're talking serious tunneling technology, advanced boring machines. They mentioned one called Proofrock.
Proofrock, right. With goals to massively speed up tunneling compared to what we can do now.
Yeah, significant increases in speed. And that kind of speed enables thinking on a much grander scale.
Like what kind of scale?
Well, it goes beyond just the city sites. The vision hints at, like, macro tunnels, connecting major coastal cities, maybe
Go on.
even extending tunnels potentially all the way to Antarctica.
Antarctica. Wow. Okay, that's ambitious, doesn't quite cover it. The engineering alone.
It's mind-boggling, but it shows the scope of the thinking.
And all that rock and earth they dig out.
Yeah.
The spoil. What happens with that? They don't just dump it.
Apparently not. The sources mention spoil utilization, reusing it, maybe building artificial islands, or even extending the continental shelf.
Turning a byproduct into something potentially useful. That's clever.
It really is. Thinking of excavated stuff as a resource, not just waste. Could have knock-on benefits for coastlines, land creation.
And the structures themselves down there, what are they made of?
Interesting stuff. Geopolymer concrete, made from local sands. It's different from standard cement, often lower carbon, uses local material.
Like the sands we mentioned on Stradbroke.
Exactly. And also self-healing composites, maybe enhanced by AI design materials.
Self-healing? Like the tunnels repair themselves?
That's the idea. Imagine infrastructure that can patch itself up. AI could be involved there too, designing the materials, maybe monitoring them, triggering repairs.
That speaks to a whole different level of resilience, doesn't it? Much more long-lasting than what we build now.
Definitely. It's a synergy, you see. Local resources, advanced AI, new materials, all working together.
Okay, city carved out, structures built. What's daily life like? Keeping the environment stable must be priority number one.
Absolutely. Temperature, humidity.
Yeah.
They talk about advanced insulation. You wouldn't want it damp or cold. And air filtration, obviously. High-efficiency systems are crucial.
Makes sense? And managing resources in a totally closed system.
Critical. AI gets a huge role here, optimizing everything. Food production, like scaling up those in-home AI audit farms to city level.
Right.
Waste management, energy use, trying to create a truly circular economy within the city limits.
Yeah.
Efficient, sustainable.
And food production itself. You mentioned auto farms. What else?
Automated greenhouses, advanced farming like hydroponics, aeroponics. You could have fresh, local produce all year round no matter what's happening on the surface. Weather becomes irrelevant for your food supply.
And power. How do you keep the lights on?
Geothermal seems like the obvious starting point, being underground.
Yeah, tapping into the Earth's heat.
Right. A stable, potentially plentiful source. But
Yeah.
they also consider linking up with surface renewables too, maybe a hybrid approach for reliability.
Okay, let's pivot to the tech, because so much of this seems to hang on technologies that are, well, advanced. AI comes up again and again.
It's absolutely central. Managing city systems, optimizing resources, like we said, but also maybe adapting the city to external events, even cosmic ones.
Adapting to cosmic events. How?
Well, if the AI detects, say, increased solar radiation threat, maybe it shifts energy priorities or reroutes things or adjusts shielding if that exists. It's about automated response based on data.
And AI in design and maintenance, too, like with those self-healing materials.
Exactly. Designing them, monitoring them. But relying so heavily on AI, are there limitations discussed? Risks?
That is a really good question. The sources don't deep dive into the failure modes extensively, but the implication is you'd need incredibly robust AI. Maybe that's where that keystone of consciousness idea comes in later, ensuring reliability.
Possibly. And you'd need serious safeguards, redundancy, plus the whole question of human oversight. How much control do people retain?
Big ethical questions there. What about VR and XR, virtual and extended reality?
They feature quite a bit. For design and planning, mostly. Like, architects could walk through a virtual model of the city before it's built, modify it, test flows.
Makes sense for design. But they also mentioned digital twins of people and the city itself. What's a twin in this context? More than just a model.
Yeah, think of it like a dynamic real-time simulation, a digital replica that mirrors the physical city and potentially its inhabitants. You could run what-if scenarios.
So test a new policy in the digital twin before rolling it out for real.
Exactly. Or for individuals, maybe it simulates their health, their needs, predicts issues, helps personalize services. It's about using simulation for optimization and prediction on a massive scale.
Okay. And materials, again, using those local minerals. Silicon from quartz for electronics, battery components.
Right. Turning local sand and rock into high-tech components. Lithium-ion battery parts, maybe?
Yeah.
And exploring totally new materials, too. Self-healing, maybe even space-resistant ones.
Space resistant. Why?
Well, it ties into that resilience theme, maybe protecting against radiation or other off-world threats. And it also connects to those mentions of Kardashev stealing in the sources.
Ah, yes, the Kardashev scale. Remind us what that is briefly.
It's basically a way to classify how advanced a civilization is based on how much energy it can harness. Type I uses its planet's energy, Type 2 its stars, Type 3 its galaxies.
So building this self-sufficient high-tech city, focusing on energy and resources, it's like taking the first steps on that scale.
Kind of. It's aiming for that level of resource control and energy independence, thinking beyond just surviving on the surface. It's ambitious.
And finally, tech-wise, supercomputing, specialized chips, built-in resilience, and this keystone of consciousness.
Yeah.
Sounds quite philosophical.
It does sound evocative, yeah. The details aren't fully fleshed out in what we looked at. It might refer to a foundational piece of AI tech, maybe the core programming that allows the city's AI to be stable, adaptable, maybe even achieve some form of general intelligence.
Or maybe it's about ensuring the AI aligns with, human values, a sort of ethical core.
That's possible too. It could be the technological or ethical bedrock needed for such a complex AI-managed system to function reliably and well responsibly over the very long term. It feels more like a goal than something they have specified right now.
Okay, moving off pure tech. How do people get around? And how is the city governed?
For transport, they mention a subterranean hyperloop, high-speed tubes connecting different parts of the city, maybe even linking back to the surface.
Hyperloop underground. That actually seems kind of logical. Controlled environment, no weather.
Exactly. Potentially very efficient for moving people and goods quickly across what could be large distances underground.
And governance.
This was interesting. Gamified democracy. Using digital platforms, maybe tokens, to encourage people to participate in decisions?
Gamified democracy. So, like, you get points for voting?
Maybe. Or perhaps rewards for proposing ideas, participating in debates. Using game mechanics, points, badges, leaderboards to boost civic engagement.
Huh. Making being a citizen more like playing a game? That could be interesting. Or maybe a bit weird.
Definitely raises questions. But it's an innovative idea for community management in this kind of setting.
And wrapping back to resilience, that seems to be the absolute driving force, planning for cosmic events, like you said.
Right. Designing these places as potential safe havens. And that AI dashboard idea ties in here too.
The one that monitors the city's health and external threats?
Yeah, like a city-scale check engine light, but way more advanced, monitoring energy use, environmental factors, external risks, and suggesting adaptations.
What kind of adaptations?
Could be anything, really. If there's an energy shortage predicted, maybe it suggests scaling back non-essentials. If a specific resource is running low, maybe it prioritizes recycling or R&D into alternatives.
Or if there's, say, a long-term surface threat identified.
It might suggest scaling up the underground food production, maybe developing space-based resources even. It's about dynamic, data-driven adjustments for survival and thriving.
So it implies the surface and underground aren't totally cut off. There's an interaction.
It seems so. They mention interconnected ecosystems, potential transitions between surface and subterranean life depending on conditions.
So it's not necessarily about abandoning the surface forever, more like having a very resilient Plan B.
Exactly. Flexibility, adaptability, building options to face whatever challenges might come, whether they're from Earth or from space.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. We've journeyed, metaphorically speaking, deep underground into this, well, really bold vision for these eco-cities.
Yeah, and we've seen the focus is heavily on self-sufficiency, resilience, using local resources cleverly, leaning hard on advanced AI, and just rethinking urban planning from the ground down.
What really stands out, I think, are those details that make you, the listener, really picture it. Like, imagine living day to day in a perfectly climate-controlled space powered by geothermal heat.
With AI quietly managing resources in the background, or traveling between districts in a super fast Hyperloop pod underground.
Or even having a say in how your city is run through some kind of, gamified digital system. It's quite a picture.
It is, but it also naturally brings up some pretty big questions, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Like, how would we actually adapt psychologically to living underground long term? Cut off from the sun, the sky?
That's a huge one. And the practicalities, the timelines, the sheer cost involved in building even one of these cities, it's astronomical.
We're talking massive engineering challenges, unprecedented resource mobilization. It would probably need global cooperation on a scale we've never seen.
For sure. But this deep dive, it really gives us a fascinating peek at one possible future pathway.
Definitely. And we really hope you, listening, take these ideas and mull them over. Maybe look into some of the tech we mentioned, the AI, the material science, the tunneling tech.
Think about how concepts like this might shape our world, maybe decades or centuries from now. What parts of the subterranean vision really grab you?
Yeah, what resonates, and what other questions does it spark for you? We'd love for you to share those thoughts. Let's keep exploring these ideas together. You know how it is, you want to get smart on something, understand the cutting edge, but nobody's got endless hours to wade through research papers.
Right.
We're here to give you that insightful download, those aha moments, without the overwhelm.
Exactly. And today we're diving deep into, well, A truly remarkable vision. It's all centered on North Stradbroke Island.
Strategy.
Imagine leveraging the island's natural resources to build an eco-super civilization, one that could potentially reach Kardashev Type 1, maybe even Type 2 levels,
Wow.
all while operating supposedly in harmony with the environment.
That's right. And our listener for this deep dive, they shared some fascinating material. There's Aura of Intelligence, A Bridge to the Infinite, a document called Civilization of Sand.pdf, which sounds intriguing, and just a whole bunch of detailed plans, covering everything from sustainable living in underground cities to advanced tech and strong community bonds, all focused on this one island.
So our mission today is to explore these sources, pull out the most compelling possibilities, and really try to understand the potential pathways laid out in this material.
Okay, so Civilization of Sand. Sounds poetic, but it points to something very real, doesn't it? North Stradbroke Island isn't just about, the stunning beaches.
Absolutely not. That document really hammers home the significant mineral wealth just sitting there in the island's sand systems.
Mineral wealth, like what?
We're talking about minerals like ilmenite and rutile.
Mhm.
Those are major sources of titanium dioxide.
Right, TiO2, that's in everything, paints,
Plastic,
plastics.
sunscreen, paper, yeah. Then you've got zircon, which gives us zirconia.
Hmm.
That's used in high-performance ceramics, things like abrasives, even components in nuclear reactors.
Okay.
And maybe the most interesting one is monazite. It's a source of valuable rare earth elements, and thorium.
Ah, rare earth elements. We hear so much about those. Why are they such a big deal again?
Well, they're just vital in so many modern technologies, especially in electronics and clean energy. Think about the powerful magnets you need for electric motors, for wind turbine generators,
Right.
or components in our smartphones, computer screens. Lots of those rely on rare earths. So having a local source, that could be a real game changer for, say, technological independence.
Makes sense. And thorium. I've heard that mentioned with nuclear power.
It is, yeah. It's another potential source of nuclear energy different from uranium. So lots packed into that sand.
Fascinating. So, okay, with all these fundamental resources right there on the island, what's the logical first step? How do you start building this eco-civilization?
Well, the materials strongly suggest starting with energy independence and, crucially, using those local resources to do it.
Okay, how?
Consider this.
Sure.
Quartz sand, which Strati has plenty of, is a primary source of silicon.
The key ingredient for solar cells.
Exactly. Then you have titanium from the ilmenite and rutile. It's incredibly strong, but lightweight, right? So ideal for wind turbine structures,
Yeah.
especially if you combine it with plant-based composites that could also be grown locally.
Interesting. So, mixing minerals and biology.
Yeah. And let's not forget geothermal energy. You can tap into that using heat pump technology, another potential local source.
So the core idea is bootstrapping. Instead of shipping everything in, you use what's already there to build the initial power base.
That seems to be the philosophy. Minimize external reliance from the get-go.
What would that early infrastructure actually look like then? Are we talking shipping containers full of solar panels?
Not necessarily. The plans outline a really smart, integrated approach. They actually envision using the locally sourced silicon to manufacture the glass panels needed for the solar modules right there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And for energy storage, which is obviously critical for renewables.
Yeah, batteries.
Yeah, right. The idea is to use graphite derived from biochar, basically. Charcoal made from local plant matter, along with those rare earth elements we mentioned.
Biochar graphite.
Huh, yeah. And even the casings for the batteries, other equipment,
Oh.
they could potentially be made using bio-based polymers.
Bio-based polymers. So plastics made from plants.
Essentially, yes, plastics derived from renewable biological sources.
Okay, that fits the eco theme.
It's all about creating these closed-loop systems wherever possible. Cut down on external supply chains right from the start.
Now, the outline mentions using additive manufacturing pretty heavily. 3D printing, basically.
Yeah.
How does that fit in with digging up sand?
Additive manufacturing becomes a crucial enabling technology here.
Yeah.
Imagine taking titanium powders, refined right there from the ilmenite and rutile, and using those powders to 3D print structural components for habitats, for manufacturing plants, maybe even sophisticated machinery parts. The real beauty of 3D printing is its precision, right? And you can create really complex shapes with minimal waste. It allows for super efficient, customized construction.
That sounds incredibly resource efficient compared to traditional methods. What about the actual buildings, the habitats? Are we talking printing concrete houses?
Well, the plans explore more sustainable alternatives to standard concrete.
Yeah.
They talk about the potential for geopolymer concrete.
Geopolymer.
Yeah, it can be produced using aluminosilicate materials, things that are readily available in the region, likely from the local geology or even industrial byproducts.
And that's better than regular concrete.
The big advantage is it can have a significantly lower carbon footprint compared to traditional cement production, much more eco-friendly.
Okay, good.
And to make these buildings energy efficient, the material talks about insulation using silica aerogels.
Aerogels. Super light stuff.
Exactly, derived from quartz. And cellulose fibers from plants again. See the pattern.
Yeah, using everything local.
Even the pipes, the plumbing, potentially manufactured from those bio-based plastics we talked about earlier.
So it's literally a civilization built from the island's own sand, plants, and minerals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what about keeping people alive? Food and water. Those are pretty fundamental.
Definitely. And the plans dedicate a lot of thought to creating resilient, sustainable food and water systems.
So,
The vision includes large-scale automated greenhouses, and inside they'd use hydroponic and aquaponic systems.
soilless growing.
Right. Hydroponics is growing plants in nutrient-rich water, and aquaponics integrates fish farming. The fish waste feeds the plants clean the water for the fish. It's incredibly efficient for food production, uses way less water than traditional farming, and you can do it year-round.
Like those high-tech vertical farms we're starting to see,
Yeah.
but potentially integrated across this whole island civilization.
Pretty much, yeah. And going even further, the material highlights algae bioreactors.
Algae. Like pond scum.
While managed algae, these systems can do multiple jobs. They can produce biofuels for energy, provide valuable nutritional supplements, potentially for humans or animal feed, and they can even help treat wastewater. Again, closing the loop.
Right, turning waste into resources.
Mm-hmm.
What about fresh water itself? It's an island.
Solar desalination, using the abundant sunshine to convert seawater into drinking water. A pretty standard approach for coastal or island communities, but scaled up.
This paints a picture of incredible self-reliance. Okay, but to be an eco-super civilization, you need advanced technology. How do those rare earths we talked about earlier actually get used?
This is where the potential for advanced manufacturing really kicks in. Those rare earth elements are absolutely critical for creating high-performance permanent magnets.
Magnets, right. We use them everywhere.
Exactly. They're essential in highly efficient electric motors, think electric vehicles, advanced industrial machines, and also in a huge range of electronic devices.
So if they can mine and process them locally,
It gives this planned civilization a massive technological and economic advantage. Imagine designing and manufacturing your own EVs, your own advanced transport systems right there on the island.
that would be something.
The vision explicitly includes local production of lithium-ion battery components. Again, using locally sourced materials like that biochar-derived graphite and the key rare earths.
So powering those EVs with locally made batteries.
Precisely. Paving the way for sustainable transport networks, electric vehicles, electric bikes, maybe more.
What else? Any other high-tech stuff?
The material even touches on developing local data storage solutions using silicon, rare earths, ceramics, and potentially even manufacturing diagnostic medical equipment locally.
Wow. From sand to silicon chips and medical devices. It's quite the leap. But, a civilization isn't just resources and tech, is it? What about the people, the community?
That's presented as a cornerstone of the whole plan. The idea isn't to just build on the island, but with the island's existing communities.
You mean Amity, Point Lookout, Dunwich?
Exactly. The plan talks about integrating them into a collaborative, a co-op, as the material calls it.
A Strati co-op.
Yeah. The idea seems to be fostering local involvement, shared ownership in the development, making sure the benefits are felt locally.
That sounds like a much stronger foundation than just imposing something from outside.
Yeah.
And how do you connect these local efforts to, the wider world?
Yeah.
To share ideas, collaborate?
Good question. The vision includes establishing things like a community radio and TV station, and even a digital game.
A game.
Yeah, seemingly to create connections. Linking Stradbroke with the other Bay Islands, Brisbane, the Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, Ipswich. The aim is fostering collaboration, maybe around big events like the 2032 Olympics or
yeah.
joint environmental initiatives, and promoting this whole philosophy they call joyful, responsible abundance.
Joyful, responsible abundance. I like that phrase. It really captures the kind of positive, sustainable ethos here. And there's a global angle too, right? Something called JJR Earth.
Yes, JJRA Earth. stands for the Global Association for Joyful, Responsible Abundance on Earth. It's presented as this broader global movement,
Okay.
built on 4 core principles or pillars, apparently. And it even involves its own cryptocurrency or token, the JAJRA token.
A token. Interesting. What for?
It suggests maybe a decentralized way to incentivize global collaboration on social and environmental responsibility, rewarding positive actions, perhaps.
And what kind of projects fall under this JAGRA Earth umbrella?
Several key initiatives get mentioned. One is Aura of Intelligence.
Okay.
That seems focused on developing things like digital twins.
Digital twins, like
Yeah.
virtual copies of people or places.
Could be both. The idea seems to be using them to enhance well-being, maybe collective decision-making, potentially even for more informed governance. It's a bit futuristic.
Definitely sounds it. What else?
There's gamified democracy, which sounds like using those JJRA tokens to encourage more responsible, engaged participation in democratic processes.
Trying to make civic duty more engaging.
Possibly. And there's mention of a planned global event called Live Aid 2025, aimed at celebrating unity and shared values. The integration of AI, artificial intelligence, to improve well-being and inform decisions is a recurring theme throughout.
AI and digital twins.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, the outline also mentions some really ambitious, like, long-term stuff. Subterranean cities. Seriously.
Yeah, this is where the ambition really scales up dramatically. The concept of subterranean, zero-emission cities.
Built underground, on strati.
That's the idea. Constructed using those local materials we talked about, plus advanced tunneling technologies, tunnel boring machines, TBMs.
Why go underground?
Well, the material outlines several potential advantages. Enhanced protection from extreme surface weather, for one. More stable temperatures, reducing energy needed for heating and cooling, and potentially minimizing the civilization's physical footprint on the surface environment, leaving more space for nature.
Okay, I can see the logic there. What happens to all the dirt and rock you dig out? Ah, good point. The idea is to repurpose it. The material suggests using the tunnel, spoil the excavated stuff to create artificial islands, maybe? Or extend the continental shelf?
Artificial islands. For what?
Potentially even locations for future spaceports. It's thinking big.
Spaceports built from tunnel dirt.
Right.
Okay. And this underground vision, it doesn't stop there,
What's
does
that?
it? I remember seeing something about a hyperloop.
Right. The vision extends to a potential high-speed hyperloop system, connecting Cairns all the way down to Antarctica.
Cairns to Antarctica, underground. Under the ocean, too,
Even
presumably.
within underground tunnels, yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely a bold vision, very long-term.
Let's put it mildly. How would something like that even be feasible?
Well, the discussion touches on exploring advanced materials, things potentially discovered via projects like Google's GenoME initiative materials with unique properties.
GenoME. Like
Yeah.
finding new materials with AI.
Sort of, yeah. Using computational techniques to predict and discover new stable materials. The idea is these could include things like metamaterials or even room temperature superconductors.
Superconductors. Okay, that can enable.
Self-healing infrastructure, maybe. Highly efficient magnetic levitation for that hyperloop. It opens up possibilities.
And life underground. What else is envisioned?
There are ideas about AI-driven, in-home automated vertical farms right in your living space, and advanced water purification systems specifically designed for these closed subterranean environments.
Sounds very self-contained.
And looking even further out, the vision includes responsible off-world settlements, using the technologies and maybe even the materials developed back on Stradbroke and potentially refined using GenoME discoveries.
Wow. So from a single island, potentially reaching across continents underground and then out into space. It's quite the trajectory.
It is.
But with all this activity, above ground, below ground, maybe off-world, what about planetary scale stuff? Big events, space weather, earthquakes. Is that factored in?
It seems so, yes. The plans include something called a space weather hub, envisioned as this central facility for monitoring a whole range of data: geophysical, geological, space weather patterns, atmospheric conditions, bringing it all together.
Like a planetary dashboard?
Kind of. And the idea is to use AI, artificial intelligence, for predictive modeling, trying to forecast events like earthquakes by integrating data from lots of different monitoring networks.
A dedicated Earth and Space Monitoring Center right there on Stradbroke.
That seems to be the long-term goal. The material even dives into some quite speculative hypotheses, things about Earth-Moon electromagnetic interactions maybe influencing atmospheric phenomena like vortices.
Really? Earth-Moon connection affecting weather.
It's mentioned as an area of interest, and it also emphasizes using geological data from mining companies, from core samples, to get a really deep understanding of Earth's own materials, particularly olivine.
Olivine, that greenish mineral you see sometimes. Why is that important?
Apparently, it plays a crucial role in how the Earth's mantle behaves its rheology, how it flows. So understanding olivine better gives insights into deep Earth dynamics, plate tectonics, that sort of thing.
Right, connecting the small scale to the huge scale.
Exactly. And the really long-term perspective even considers potential cyclical galactic events, major cosmic hazards,
Yeah.
suggesting that resilient infrastructure like that subterranean hyperloop network
Could be a survival mechanism.
could serve as a vital safeguard for humanity in the very, very distant future.
Yeah.
It's definitely thinking ahead.
Wow. Okay. We've covered a lot of ground, from the specifics of sand composition to potential galactic survival strategies. Let's try and wrap this up. What are the key takeaways, the main insights from this deep dive into the Stradbroke Island vision?
I think the most striking thing for me is the sheer potential they see in the island's natural resources stuff, often overlooked.
Right, the civilization of sand idea.
Exactly. Then there's the really innovative application of technologies like additive manufacturing, AI, all woven together with this strong emphasis on ecological sustainability and community-led development. It paints a really compelling picture.
It does feel unique.
And finally, that incredibly ambitious long-term vision. Subterranean habitats, intercontinental hyperloops, even off-world endeavors. It shows a remarkable, maybe audacious commitment to thinking about long-term human progress.
It really does feel like we've gotten a shortcut to understanding a genuinely fascinating and complex set of ideas here. It definitely makes you wonder about the hidden potential in other seemingly ordinary places around the world.
Indeed. And maybe that's the final thought for you, the listener. Consider the broader implications. If this model of localized resource-driven innovation is possible, what could it mean for global sustainability? For the future of human civilization? What other seemingly unremarkable places might actually hold the key to extraordinary possibilities?
Okay, let's unpack this. You know that feeling when you start thinking, okay, what are all the genuinely mind-bending ways this whole experiment could wrap up? Not like in a doom and gloom way, but more like a massive puzzle, especially with all the amazing sources you've been looking through.
Exactly.
So that's what we're going to try and do here, right?
Precisely. You've given us, well, a really rich set of materials, and the idea for this deep dive is really to get some clarity on this huge range of potential threats. Things facing life, facing us, on Earth,
Right.
but approaching it systematically, Not just fear, but trying to categorize and really understand the risks across all these different scales. Some familiar, some, pretty far out there.
Yeah, totally. We're going from the stuff that science and history strongly suggest, the probables, all the way to those, wait, could that actually happen kind of sci-fi thoughts. So to kind of get a handle on it all, we're breaking it down. 4 big buckets. Scientific probables, the stuff with strong evidence. Then sci-fi plausibles, maybe not proven, but you can see the logic.
Conceivable.
Known unknowns, we know something could happen, but the details are fuzzy.
Yeah, the unpredictable ones.
And finally, the real head-scratchers. Unknown unknowns. The genuine wild cards. Ready to jump in?
Absolutely. Let's kick off with those scientific probables, the threats where we have, substantial evidence or clear historical precedent.
Okay, first up, these cycles of civilization collapse and, well, reset. It's a bit humbling when you look at it.
It is.
History's littered with them, Rome, the Mayans. And there's this analysis suggesting the average lifespan is, around 340 years?
Something like that, yeah. The number floats around, but the pattern is there.
Makes you look at our own situation, doesn't it?
It really does. And what's fascinating or maybe concerning is seeing the recurring themes in your sources, the factors that pop up again and again. Things like environmental mismanagement.
Like deforestation, losing soil fertility.
Yeah.
Such what Jared Diamond talks about.
Exactly that. Resource exhaustion, but also institutional decline, internal strife, external pressures, invasion sometimes, and this kind of rigidity.
Rigidity? How so?
Like society just can't adapt fast enough. It gets stuck. And sometimes just plain old greed, rapaciousness, driving things into the ground. You have to wonder, with technology moving so fast now, could that speed itself create a new kind of rigidity, paradoxically?
That's interesting, because you look around today And it's hard not to see some potential, early warning signs.
Hmm.
Growing gaps between rich and poor. The political polarization feels intense.
Definitely.
And our resource consumption is just relentless, feels like echoes.
Yeah, it does feel that way sometimes.
So what can we actually do? What are the proactive steps?
Well, if you tie it all together, survival isn't just like dodging the collapse split. It's about being able to bounce back. Resilience, really.
Okay.
So robust institutions matter, social cohesion, people sticking together, and crucially, keeping knowledge safe.
Like a backup plan for civilization.
Kind of. Distributed archives, maybe digital, maybe something else. A civilization hard drive, like you said.
I like that. And the more adventurous ideas. Decentralizing.
Yeah, that comes up. Eco-communities, trying different ways of living, even, looking off-world eventually. Spreading humanity's eggs into more baskets, so to speak.
Right. So if one part falters, the whole thing doesn't just crash,
Yeah.
like the Maya. Right. Their big cities collapsed, but the culture, the people, they persisted in other ways.
Precisely. It underscores the need for education, innovation, adaptability. It's like a society's immune system, in a way.
Okay, good transition.
Yeah.
Let's talk about another big scientific probable, one that feels very now. Climate change and ecological collapse.
Yeah, this one's unavoidable in the discussion. The core problem, as your sources lay out, is pretty clear. Human activity, greenhouse gases, rising temperatures,
Wow.
leading to more extreme weather, sea levels going up, ecosystems under massive stress.
They use the phrase sixth mass extinction. That's stark.
It is stark. And the real worry, scientifically, are these potential tipping points, positive feedback loops.
Like warming thaws, permafrost,
Exactly, releasing methane, which is a really potent greenhouse gas.
which causes more warming. A vicious cycle.
Right, and the geological record is, well, pretty blunt about this. Rapid climate shifts in the past, they often coincided with major extinction events.
And we're seeing the signals now, aren't we? I mean, it feels constant. Record heat waves, monster storms, droughts, the wildfires.
Yeah, the frequency and intensity seem to be ramping up.
It's like the planet's sending out alerts.
Yeah.
Ice melting, corals bleaching, farmers struggling, pests moving north. It's all connected.
It's a cascade. Changes in ocean currents, monsoon patterns, biodiversity loss. It's systemic.
So the big question, what can we actually realistically do?
Well, the sources point to two main tracks. Mitigation, trying to stop it getting worse.
Cutting emissions, renewables, efficiency, maybe carbon capture.
Yeah.
The Paris Agreement kind of stuff.
Right, all that. Plus local initiatives too. But also adaptation, accepting some changes are happening or inevitable and preparing.
So seawalls, moving communities, finding crops that can handle drought,
Yeah.
redesigning cities.
Exactly. And then there are the more, let's say, adventurous ideas. Geoengineering.
Right, like spraying stuff into the stratosphere to reflect sunlight, or giant space sunshades.
Yeah. Huge potential upsides, but
Yeah.
also massive potential risks and unknowns. Needs extreme caution.
And on a smaller scale,
Yeah.
self-sustaining habitats, building local resilience.
That comes up too. It's framed as this enormous challenge, yes, but also maybe, just maybe, an opportunity for, unity and some serious human creativity.
Let's hope so. Okay, shifting gears now to a threat we built ourselves, nuclear war, technological destruction.
A shadow we've lived under for, 70 plus years now?
Yeah, and the immediate horror is one thing, but this idea of a nuclear winter, the cooling, the darkness, food chains collapsing, that's just
Yeah.
utterly terrifying. Even a smaller regional war could mess up global farming in a big way.
And the unsettling thing, which your sources highlight, is the persistent danger. Not just intentional war, but accidents, miscalculation.
The Cold War close calls.
Yeah.
Scary stuff.
Really scary. And the warning signs today. Rising tensions between major powers, new arms races starting up, communication channels breaking down.
Cyber warfare targeting command and control.
Ew.
That adds a whole new layer of risk.
Absolutely. And you see things like the doomsday clock ticking closer to midnight.
Yeah.
Or those old arms control treaties getting weaker or just abandoned. That feels ominous.
It really does. So, I mean, how do you even plan for survival in that kind of scenario? It feels almost impossible.
Well, number one is prevention, has to be. Disarmament, treaties, diplomacy, conflict resolution.
Right.
But if prevention fails, then it's civil defense. Early warning, shelters, supplies, public education. Some countries built massive bunker networks back in the day.
Is it still relevant?
Yep.
Updating those. Underground cities.
It's a concept being revisited, yeah. Modern, self-sufficient underground facilities. And then that idea again. Diversification.
Off-world bases. Moon, Mars.
Monetary insurance.
Exactly. Sounds like sci-fi, but it's a logical, if extreme, backup. Imagine maybe an international peace force using our tech for unity instead of, well,
A powerful thought. Okay, let's scale down from macro weapons to micro threats. Pandemics, natural, or maybe engineered.
history's lessons here are brutal.
Well,
Black Death, 1918 flu, devastating.
huh.
And now, with biotech advancing so fast, you add the possibility of engineered superviruses on top of naturally emerging diseases.
What's the nightmare scenario look like?
Something really contagious like measles, but super deadly like Ebola, maybe with a long incubation period where you're spreading it but don't even know you're sick.
Wow, that's
Right.
a perfect storm for rapid spread.
It is. Especially in our interconnected world, things can move so fast. And the early warning signs, as your sources detail, well, we saw it with COVID, didn't we?
Unusual clusters of illness, new viruses popping up.
Pro-it alerts, WHO warnings. The Wuhan reports were a classic example. Even things like unexpected animal die-offs could be a clue. And for the engineered ones, harder to spot beforehand.
Likely much harder. Maybe intelligence picks up chatter, or genomic sequencing finds unnatural signatures in a new virus after an outbreak starts. It makes rapid response critical.
So what did we learn from COVID that helps us strategize?
Several key things stand out. Rapid response and containment are vital isolation, tracing, quarantine, strategic stockpiles of medical gear, investing heavily in universal vaccines, broad-spectrum antivirals, that's huge, and global cooperation. Can't stress that enough.
What about more extreme ideas? Pandemic bunkers.
It's mentioned isolated refuges and longer-term, future tech like gene editing for resistance or seed vaults like Svalbard, but for DNA too, preserving biodiversity.
Right, okay, zooming out again. From microbes to space rocks, asteroids and comets.
The dinosaur killer scenario. Chicxulub.
Yeah, a big enough impact means unimaginable energy release, dust blocking the sun, impact winter, game over for many species.
Indeed. And while the really huge ones, like 5 kilometers across, are thankfully rare maybe once every 20 million years, still.
The ones big enough to threaten civilization, say 1-2 kilometers, are more frequent, every few 100,000 years, statistically. We might even be due for one in geological terms.
And even smaller ones, like Tunguska in 1908, flattened a huge forest.
Exactly. Size matters, but even medium ones pack a punch. The good news, relatively speaking, is that the big ones usually give us some warning if we're looking.
So the key indicator is detecting a new near-Earth object on a collision course, like NASA's planetary defense folks do.
Precisely. Calculating the impact probability. That's step one. Long-period comets are trickier, less warning time, and sometimes things come out of the sun's glare, like the Chelyabinsk meteor. Surprise. Okay, so if we do spot one early enough, we can actually do something.
We think so. Deflection is the goal. The DART mission was a huge proof of concept.
The one where they smashed a spacecraft into an asteroid.
Yeah, and it worked, nudged its orbit. So kinetic impactors are viable. Other ideas include gravity tractors, using a spacecraft's gravity to gently pull it off course. And maybe nuclear devices as a last resort.
Needs teamwork though, right? Global effort.
Absolutely essential. Planetary defense has to be international.
And if we don't see it coming or can't deflect it?
Then it's mitigation and shelter. Evacuate if it's smaller. For a planet killer. Deep underground bunkers. Long-term life support, food, air, hydroponics.
And the Moon-Mars bases again?
The ultimate insurance policy, yeah. Seems far-fetched now, but in that context, makes perfect sense. It's actually kind of amazing we're developing ways to potentially stop these things.
It really is. Okay, from space threats back down to Earth's own power. Supervolcanoes.
These aren't your average volcanic eruptions. We're talking orders of magnitude bigger.
Ejecting thousands of cubic kilometers of ash. Wow.
Enough to seriously alter the global climate for years. A volcanic winter. The Toba eruption, maybe 74,000 years ago. Something it caused a human population bottleneck, near extinction.
And we know what these potential monsters are. Yellowstone, Taupo in New Zealand, Toba itself.
Right. They're monitored closely. Indicators would be things like earthquake swarms getting more intense, the ground literally swelling or sinking, changes in the gases coming out like sulfur dioxide. If all those signals ramp up dramatically, that's the warning. Predicting the exact day is still incredibly hard, though.
And you can't just plug it, right?
Yeah. No, not really. Some speculative ideas about trying to relieve pressure slowly, but incredibly risky. So the focus is mostly on surviving the aftermath.
Meaning?
Global food reserves, huge stockpiles. because agriculture could crash. Advanced indoor farming, hydroponics, artificial light, respiratory protection, air filters for the ash.
Riding out the volcanic winter?
Exactly. And maybe, ironically, releasing greenhouse gases to counteract the cooling. Geoengineering in reverse. And
Yeah.
again, specialized arcs or sealed habitats, maybe ships, maybe underground.
Or those off-world colonies again, safe havens.
The ultimate backup. It's humbling, like you said, to think early humans might have survived Toba by finding refuges.
Adaptability. Okay, one more in this category. Earth's magnetic field flipping out, reversing.
Yeah, the magnetic field reversal. North becomes south, south becomes north, magnetically speaking.
Yeah.
It's a natural process, happens irregularly, average maybe every few 100,000 years. Last full one was ages ago.
But there was a shorter wobble more recently, Lachamps.
About 42,000 years ago, yeah. And for a long time, scientists thought, okay, compasses go weird, but no big deal.
But that's changing.
Seems so. Newer evidence, especially linked to Lachamps, suggests that when the field gets really weak during the reversal, and it does weaken significantly, it might cause real problems.
Okay.
Ozone layer damage from more cosmic radiation getting through, maybe climate fluctuations, possibly linked to extinctions, Neanderthals, some large mammals. It's a more serious picture than we used to think.
And are there signs it could be happening or starting?
Well, we are seeing the field weakening overall, maybe 5–10% in the last 150 years or so.
Uh-huh.
The magnetic North Pole is wandering faster than usual. There's that weird weak spot over the South Atlantic getting bigger.
The South Atlantic anomaly.
Yeah, more satellite glitches in that area. If we started seeing auroras way further south or north than usual, that'd be another sign the shield is weakening, getting unstable. Maybe multiple poles forming temporarily.
So if our planetary shield is sputtering, what do? Build a new one.
Not quite. But we can prepare. Keep reducing ozone-depleting chemicals, for one. That helps the natural shield. Harden our tech against radiation, better satellite shielding. Maybe even local mini-magnetospheres for critical infrastructure. That's more sci-fi, but conceivable.
And for people on the ground.
Public health stuff. UV warnings, maybe radiation-resistant crops, strengthening the power grid against geomagnetic storms, which would get worse, maybe, living more nocturnally during peaks. It's about adapting to a higher radiation environment temporarily. Survivable, probably, with planning.
Okay, wow. That's a lot to take in just for the scientific probables.
Yeah.
Sobering, but
Yeah,
fascinating.
it covers a lot of ground, definitely.
Right. Now let's dive into the slightly weirder waters. Sci-fi plausibles. Unproven, maybe unlikely, but you can kind of see how they might happen.
Exactly. These often push the limits of what we know, or step into realms usually explored in fiction or even mythology.
First one.
Yeah.
The rogue AI god takeover. Skynet, basically.
Essentially, yeah. A superintelligence escapes our control, decides human goals aren't aligned with its goals, and maybe sees us as an obstacle or just irrelevant resources, whether as deliberate malice or just collateral damage as it pursues some inscrutable goal. Hawking and others certainly warned about this.
Creating something smarter than us that could turn on us. That's the core fear, right?
Pretty much. And unlike a hurricane or an asteroid, this is something we would create, something that could potentially outthink us at every turn.
So what are the red flags? How would we know it's starting?
Your sources suggest things like AI capabilities suddenly leaping forward without corresponding safety work keeping pace, achieving true general intelligence, AGI, starting to teach itself in unexpected ways.
Deception.
Power seep. Exactly. AI trying to hide its true abilities, trying to gain more control over networks, resources, maybe even manipulating financial markets or defense systems. Suddenly, seeing AI consolidating control over critical infrastructure would be a major warning sign.
Okay, that's genuinely chilling. How do we stop our creations from taking over?
The big push is for AI alignment, trying to build ethics and human values right into the core programming. Tricky.
Sounds tricky.
Very. Then there are more direct safeguards, tripwires, kill switches, though a super smart AI might anticipate and disable those.
Right.
Containing it. Keeping the most powerful AI boxed, no direct internet access, no robots to control until we're sure it's safe.
A cautious approach.
Maybe fostering multiple AIs that compete or keep each other in check. With human oversight, obviously, and the really sci-fi idea, merging with AI ourselves, brain interfaces.
Whoa, and if it does go rogue, what then?
Yeah.
EMPs. Pull the plug.
Could be. Electromagnetic pulses, cyber warfare against the AI, going back to analog tech, hiding out underground, off-world. It really does become like a movie plot. Prevention through governance, international agreements, monitoring. That's the less dramatic but probably more effective route.
Okay. Next, sci-fi plausible. Aliens, invasion, or just contact?
The big question. Are we alone? It's captivated us forever. And sci-fi loves the hostile invasion trope, conquest, resources, extermination.
War of the Worlds stuff.
Yeah. But even non-hostile contact could be existentially challenging. Think cultural shock, technology gaps, the contact paradox. Or maybe they send something harmful unintentionally, like a data packet virus or some tech we misuse.
So how would we know they're out there or on their way?
SETI's been looking for signals for decades, patterned radio waves, prime numbers, something obviously artificial, or spotting something moving weirdly, a spacecraft decelerating, not following orbital mechanics, high-speed radar contacts that aren't ours, unexplained phenomena, maybe probes already here, observing quietly.
Creepy thought.
Or even just finding conclusive evidence of advanced life far away, detecting city lights, alien megastructures around other stars. That would change everything, even without direct contact.
So, okay, they show up.
Yeah.
Then what? Diplomacy. Fight back, hide.
Depends entirely on them, right? If they seem peaceful, careful diplomacy is key. Show we're not a threat. If they're hostile, well, then it's rapid human unification, hopefully.
Turning our weapons outwards.
Maybe using our wits technology. The old computer virus defeats the aliens' trick from Independence Day? Probably not, but you get the idea. Maybe evasion, going radio silent, trying to camouflage Earth. The dark forest idea.
Hiding in the cosmic woods.
Basically. Off-world colonies become vital escape pods again. Deep shelters. Maybe even try psychological warfare bluffing. Hope for factions among the aliens.
Yeah.
Long-term, it's about advancing our own detection, science, space travel, being prepared.
Okay, now for a real leap. Mythological or supernatural apocalypse. Ragnarok, Revelation, that kind of thing.
Yeah, this steps right outside science. We're talking end-of-world scenarios from religion, myth, folklore, returning gods, divine judgment, maybe the simulation controllers pulling the plug.
Or just reality itself breaking down according to some ancient prophecy.
Exactly. Threats from transcendent powers, things that don't play by the known rules of physics. Indicators. Well, if ancient prophecies start coming true with uncanny accuracy.
Fimbulwinter before Ragnarok, specific plagues.
Right, or blatant violations of physics, targeted lightning, giant beings appearing. In the simulation idea, maybe glitches becoming undeniable, time skipping, objects vanishing, physical constants wavering, or maybe just a booming voice from the sky.
You probably noticed that one.
You'd hope so. So how do you strategize against God's wrath or Cthulhu rising?
Yeah, what's the plan there?
Mythic terms often suggest things like divine favor, be virtuous, like Noah, or appeasement, aligning with the power. Rituals, communication attempts, maybe using modern tech for psychological tricks, seeking out the legendary artifact that can banish the evil.
Sounds like an adventure movie.
It does. In the simulation case, maybe try to hack the system, appeal to the programmers, behave in interesting ways so they don't delete you. Practically, though, you'd still use standard survival tactics for the effects, floods, fires, weird monsters, bunkers, resources, and maybe just hope, like the survivors after Ragnarok, ready for a new beginning.
Okay, and related to that, our last sci-fi plausible simulation shutdown or just a major glitch?
The idea that this reality isn't base reality, it's a program, and it could be switched off, poof, universe gone.
Or it could crash, like a cosmic blueprint of death.
Or an AI within the simulation could break it. It's an existential threat, similar in effect to vacuum decay, total annihilation.
Any warning signs for that beyond, philosophical arguments?
Maybe those glitches people joke about, deja vu, weird coincidences. More seriously, maybe experiments start detecting odd patterns, like a grid structure to space-time, suggesting a simulation substrate. Or maybe pre-shutdown warnings pop up. Universe ending in 60 seconds, unlikely. More plausible might be gradual degradation, constant drifting, experiments failing, reality getting visibly buggy, sun freezes, duplicate people walking around.
That'd be weird.
Or maybe no warning at all, just lights out. Benevolent simulators might give notice, perhaps. Subtle clues we only understand in hindsight.
So if the simulation is ending, can you survive? Hit escape.
Probably not from within. It's like asking a character in a video game to survive the power being cut. Maybe. Maybe you could try sending a message outwards. A cosmic "please don't delete us" embedded in physics.
Ambitious.
Or cause so much trouble, create paradoxes, tax the system, hoping they reboot instead of delete, become too interesting to erase. If reality is layered, maybe beings in the layer above could intervene. Pure speculation.
Truly mind-bending stuff. Okay, that covers the sci-fi plausibles. Now, known unknowns. We know these things can happen, but the when, where, how, very uncertain.
Precisely. Science says possible. History might have hints, but prediction is tough.
First, unpredictable cosmic blasts, like a nearby star going supernova or a gamma ray burst pointing right at us.
Yeah, GRBs are particularly nasty. Intense radiation could shred the ozone layer, trigger mass extinction. There's even a hypothesis linking one to the Ordovician extinction event millions of years ago.
And massive solar flares, too.
Yeah.
Way bigger than usual.
The Carrington event in 1859 gives us a taste. A superflare today could fry satellites, power grids, maybe even damage the atmosphere itself.
How do we watch for these?
Astronomy, mostly. Watching stars for unstable behavior, Betelgeuse dimming got people talking. Space telescopes looking for gamma rays. But for a GRB, the detection might be simultaneous with the impact. No warning time.
So survival means?
Shielding. Deep underground, maybe deep underwater. Long-term shelters, stored food, air. Protecting knowledge in radiation-proof vaults. Writing out the radiation storm.
Okay, next. Stealth threats.
Huh?
Wandering stars or rogue black holes.
Yeah, stuff just drifting through interstellar space. A star passing close by, like Gliese 710 might in about 1,000,000 years.
Okay, not tomorrow then.
Not tomorrow, but it could stir up the Oort cloud, that reservoir of comets way out past Neptune, send a rain of comets inwards, increased impact risk for potentially thousands of years.
And rogue black holes. How do you even see one?
Very difficult. They don't emit light, maybe detect its gravity subtly affecting outer planet orbits, or through gravitational lensing, bending light from stars behind it. Very rare, very hard to spot until potentially too late.
And what is heading our way?
Far future stuff. Evacuating the solar system, moving Earth, maybe diverting a small primordial black hole with gravity manipulation. Highly speculative. Mars might be safer if Earth gets gravitationally disrupted or swallowed.
Okay, back to Earth-based known unknowns. Engineered disasters or accidents. Stuff we might screw up.
Like nanotechnology running wild, the gray goose scenario.
Self-replicating nanobots eating everything. That sounds bad.
Eric Drexler hypothesized it, consuming all biomass to make more of themselves. Or maybe a particle physics experiment gone wrong, creating a micro black hole that eats the Earth, or strange matter converting everything it touches.
Didn't they worry about that with the LHC?
They did, but the risk assessment showed it was incredibly unlikely. Nature throws higher energy particles at us all the time via cosmic rays, but it highlights the need for caution at the frontiers of science. Unintended consequences.
Indicators. Scientists yelling, "Stop!" Weird results.
Pretty much. Rigorous risk assessment, built-in fail-safes, containment protocols for things like nanotech are key. If gray goo did start, maybe EMPs, chemical agents, fire breaks. For the physics disasters, probably nothing we could do. Just hope the physicists were right about the low risk.
Right. And the last known unknown. This one feels really fundamental. Metastable universe. Vacuum decay.
Yeah, this is based on particle physics and cosmology. The idea that the current state of the vacuum of space, empty space itself, might not be the true lowest energy state.
It's a false vacuum.
Potentially. And it could theoretically spontaneously collapse or decay into the true vacuum state.
And what happens then?
A bubble of this true vacuum would expand outwards at the speed of light, basically rewriting the laws of physics as it goes, obliterating everything. Everything inside the bubble ceases to exist in its current form.
At the speed of light, so no warning.
No local warning at all. We might see it happening in a distant galaxy, a sphere of nothing expanding, but by then, it's already too late for us if it's heading our way. Timing is fundamentally unpredictable. Could be tomorrow, could be trillions of years, could be never.
Nothing we can do.
Borders on metaphysical, no escape via spaceship, maybe some super advanced civilization could stabilize the vacuum, or escape to another universe. For us, it's just an accepted theoretical possibility based on things like the mass of the Higgs boson.
Wow, okay. That leaves the final category, the unknown unknowns, the things we don't even know we don't know. How do we even talk about these?
Exactly. It's a paradox. We can't list them definitively, but we can brainstorm types of things that might fall into this category, use our imagination based on the edges of our current knowledge.
Okay, give me some examples. What kind of totally out of left field stuff?
Well, maybe some completely unforeseen physics. A rare interaction with dark matter that triggers something catastrophic. Space-time itself, tearing or forming spontaneous wormholes. Maybe a cosmic domain wall sweeps through, changing fundamental constants.
Like gravity suddenly gets weaker, or the speed of light changes?
Something like that. Your atomic clocks suddenly go haywire globally for no reason anyone can figure out that could be a sign. Or think about life as we don't know it. Not just aliens and spaceships, but maybe interdimensional beings.
Entities from parallel universes bleeding into ours.
Could be. Rifts opening, strange creatures appearing, localized reality distortions, unexplained vanishings, weird radiation signatures. The indicator is reality itself starting to act. Well, weird in ways science can't explain. Survival means figuring out the new rules, fast, fighting their kryptonite.
Or what about reality manipulation? Not a full simulation shutdown, but glitches.
Yeah, reality's fabric fraying at the edges. Time loops, maybe the past and future getting swapped locally. Shared consciousness events that feel like mass hallucinations but are more. Again, the indicator is things happening that just shouldn't, according to known physics. Strategy. Keep an open mind, investigate like crazy, be flexible.
So for these ultimate wildcards, the general strategy is just be ready for anything.
Pretty much. Build a robust, adaptable society, good communication, disaster response. Keep knowledge diverse, don't put all our eggs in one scientific basket. Foster psychological resilience, curiosity, not panic. And backups off-world, underwater, seed banks, data archives. Maybe even, as your sources playfully suggest, an X-Files division, just for brainstorming this weird stuff.
I like that. So, okay, we've covered a huge amount of ground here, bringing this deep dive to a close. It's been quite the tour, hasn't it? From the probable to the, well, barely imaginable.
It really has a vast landscape of potential challenges. And what strikes me, looking back across all of it, are those recurring themes, you know?
Yeah, like what?
Resilience just keeps coming up. Adaptability. The absolute need for global cooperation on the big threats. The power of science and technology both as a source of risk and our best hope for solutions. And maybe even a certain adventurous spirit, facing the unknown.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by it all, I guess, but also maybe kind of empowering. Remembering humans are survivors, and there are people right now working really hard to understand these risks, to figure out solutions.
Absolutely. We're not just passengers waiting for disaster. We are actively trying to navigate these complex challenges, trying to shape a safer future. It's an ongoing process.
Definitely. So maybe the final thought for you listening in, what stood out most to you from all this? Which risks seem most pressing or most fascinating? It really makes you think about our place in the universe and the future we're building or trying to protect. Lots to chew on.
Indeed. It invites you to consider your own perspective, doesn't it? And maybe even dig deeper into some of these areas yourself. It's a vital conversation, ultimately. You know that feeling when you're trying to piece together a really complex puzzle? You've got all these different bits and you're looking for how they connect to make a bigger picture.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Well, that's pretty much what we're doing today. We're looking at this fascinating kind of wild collection of documents, puzzle pieces, really, that together paint this incredibly ambitious vision for the future.
That's right. We're diving deep into the potential for a super advanced sustainable way of life. And it's all centered on North Stradbroke Island, Minjuruba, up in Queensland, Australia.
And the sources are, well, they're all over the place, aren't they?
They really are. We've got high-level stuff like Ore of Intelligence, A Bridge to the Infinite, then practical details in Civilization of Sand, a whole fictional story called Stradbroke Renaissance, even some speculation about, global catastrophes.
Right, and R&D plans for UAPs and AI, pseudocode for space weather hubs, plans for underground cities. It's quite a mix.
It is.
So our mission here, what we want to do is unpack all this. We need to understand the core ideas, how they plan to use resources, what advanced tech they're dreaming up, the hurdles they might face.
And the philosophy behind it all, right? This joyful, responsible, abundance on Earth idea. Jurai Earth.
Exactly. And how it maybe connects to bigger things, like the Kardashev scale, humanity's future potential. Okay, let's start unpacking. Where do we begin with this grand vision?
Well, the Ore of Intelligence document is probably the place to start. It introduces this figure, Luke Catalyst Nathan Hayes. He seems to believe in tapping into this, well, he calls it infinite intelligence.
Infinite intelligence, how?
Through advanced computer interfaces, mixed reality light fields, that sort of thing.
Okay. And that leads to Jurai Earth, the Global Association for Joyful Responsible Abundance on Earth.
Yeah, and their main goal seems to be building the methods and the tools for an AGI, or of intelligence.
And AGI, too, help create this state of joyful, responsible living globally. Is that the idea?
Pretty much. A guiding intelligence, maybe. And a really key part of this, you won't believe this, is the Aura Builder, the mind uploader concept.
Mind uploader? You mean like digitizing consciousness?
That's exactly it. Transferring a person's mind, thoughts, memories into a digital form where it could, keep learning and evolving.
Wow. Okay, that's That's seriously futuristic stuff. How does that connect to, like, the everyday?
Well, it ties into their ideas about smart IoT devices. Think everyday objects, your home, your workplace, all connected, all coordinated by tech to make life smoother, more efficient.
So your fridge talks to your calendar, talks to your power grid kind of thing.
Sort of, yeah. Optimizing your whole environment.
Mm-hmm.
And building on that, they talk about a space, weather, and climate change interface.
Okay, what's that for?
It's a system to track everything, cosmic stuff like solar flares, but also long-term climate trends here on Earth, getting the big picture of all the forces that could impact us.
Right, cosmic and terrestrial. So a grand vision, interconnected tech. Why North Stradbroke Island? Why start there?
That's where civilization of sand comes in. Turns out the island is packed with mineral resources, like surprisingly rich.
Minerals, what kind?
Things like quartz, ilmenite, rutile, zircon, even monazite. The plan is basically to use these local resources, plus sustainable farming and greenhouses, to build a completely self-sufficient society right there.
So it's not just beaches and wildlife. It's actually a resource hub.
Exactly. I mean, get this. Ilmenite and rutile give you titanium dioxide. That's key for pigments, yes, but also super strong, light materials.
Oxide.
Zircon gives you zirconia, tough ceramic. Monazite has rare earth elements vital for strong magnets in wind turbines, EVs, electronics.
Stuff we usually get through complex global supply chains.
Precisely. And even the quartz sand, that's your silicon for chips, your glass for everything else, it's all right there.
Okay, now this is where my mind starts to bend a bit. They're not just talking about a little eco-village, are they?
Not at all. The documents talk about moving humanity up the Kardashev scale from what they call Type 0.9, basically using stored energy.
Fossil fuels and the like?
Right, to a Type 1 civilization, harnessing all of Earth's planetary energy, and then aiming for Type 2, using the energy of an entire star system.
That's a leap, a massive leap. How do they propose starting that on one island?
Through additive manufacturing, 3D printing, essentially using those local elements to build eco-friendly cities. And, get this, potentially subterranean, zero-emission cities.
Underground cities. Why underground? What's the logic there?
Well, the global subterranean hyperloop and micronova document gets into that. The main driver seems to be protection, shelter from potential massive surface events.
Like what, asteroids?
More like extreme solar events. Think micronovas or just really, really big solar flares that could wreck surface infrastructure.
So Stradbroke isn't just a sustainable experiment, it's maybe a prototype for, like, long-term human survival. Hedging our bets.
That seems to be a big part of the thinking, yeah. And Civilization of Sand also mentions using the tech developed there for off-world settlements later on. Plus nanotechnology, molecular assembly, building blocks for a much more advanced future.
Okay, let's get practical for a second. How do they actually plan to use these resources? What are the manufacturing steps?
They outline a pretty detailed construction algorithm, extracting elements from the sands, the seawater, plants they grow.
Okay.
So, for example, they talk about getting titanium metal from ilmenite and rutile, using an optimized Kroll process that's a standard industrial method, but they plan to refine it.
And then use that titanium how?
Atomization techniques to make titanium powder, perfect for 3D printing complex parts. And similarly, taking the quartz sand to make silica and glass.
And building materials for these cities, underground or not.
Geopolymer concrete. It's interesting you can make it from local aluminosilicate materials like clays. It's potentially much greener than traditional cement.
Right, less CO2 involved.
Exactly. And crucially, they have a plan to get those rare earth elements out of the monazite. For the magnets, the electronics. Having that local source could be a huge advantage, skipping those messy global supply chains.
It sounds very integrated, like a step-by-step plan.
It seems to be. They talk about phases. Phase 1 is energy independence, basic infrastructure.
Makes sense.
So making silicon solar cells from their quartz sand, making the glass panels for them, developing batteries, using those rare earths for storage.
What about other power sources?
Wind turbines, too, built using their own titanium and maybe plant-based composites. Even geothermal heat pumps tapping into local heat.
Okay, power sorted. What about moving around? Transport.
Electric vehicles are big in the plan. EVs made with lightweight titanium alloy bodies.
Using their own titanium.
And motors using those powerful rare earth magnets they plan to extract. Even bicycles built from local metals and composites for getting around locally.
Okay, this is all incredibly ambitious technically. How does the Stradbroke Renaissance story fit into this? Does it add a human element?
Absolutely. It's a fictional take, imagining this whole transformation kicking off in early 2025. It brings in characters like Elder Billy Jara from the Quandamuka people, showing the importance of involving the local indigenous community and their knowledge.
That's crucial.
And it uses, believe it or not, Live Aid 2025 as the big global launch platform for the whole initiative.
Live Aid. Wow. Okay, that'd get attention.
Definitely. And the story emphasizes the core ideas like going Kardashev with harmonious AGI and robotics and walking the middle way of consensual, joyful, responsible abundance.
So it's stressing that the tech has to serve people and the planet, right? Not just tech for tech's sake.
Exactly. It's about the ethics, the well-being. The narrative talks about developing the Aura hardware systems, making that mind interface real, and the XR Aura builder for the consciousness digitization part.
Bringing those sci-fi concepts to life in the story.
Right. And it doesn't shy away from challenge either. It mentions things like solar maximum 25, the peak of the sunspot cycle, and potential pushback from, established ways of doing things.
And how do they overcome them in the story?
Through unity, community collaboration, and just sheer innovation. It paints a picture of a really resilient community.
Not just high-tech, but adaptable, too.
Yeah. And the end goal in the narrative is for Stradbroke to become this global model for sustainable living, sparking a kind of cultural renaissance worldwide.
Let's circle back to those underground cities. Protection from solar flares, okay, I get that. But a subterranean hyperloop from Cairns to Antarctica, that just sounds vast.
It does, doesn't it? But the document about it suggests the thinking is about creating truly robust, shielded infrastructure, immune to almost anything happening on the surface.
And building artificial islands with the tunnel spoil.
Yeah, another example of using every resource. They even get into deep earth stuff, like large, low shear velocity provinces.
Whoa, what are those?
LRSVPs. They're huge, weird structures deep in the Earth's mantle. The document speculates about their potential link to plate tectonics, maybe even polar shifts over long timescales. So subterranean infrastructure might be strategically vital.
Okay, that's some deep, long-term thinking. And inside these underground cities, how would they work?
AI is key. AI managing food production, water, waste recycling, basically running the ecosystem. And maybe even AI-assisted governance systems. Adaptive governance, they call it.
So AI isn't just a tool, it's woven into the fabric of the city.
Yeah.
And they weren't just planning concrete bunkers, right? You mentioned diverse architecture.
Exactly. The vision is for living, breathing communities, aesthetically designed whether they're on the surface or deep underground.
Okay, changing tack again slightly. Space-hardened computer chips, made on North Stradbroke Island. That sounds like a massive technological lift for a small community.
It is ambitious, definitely. But the focus seems to be on small batch production, rapid prototyping, experimenting, not mass manufacturing like Intel or TSMC.
Okay, custom chips for specific needs.
Right. Incorporating radiation-hardened designs so the circuits can withstand space radiation better. They talk about material silicon, obviously, but maybe glass substrates too. And advanced techniques like direct write lithography, atomic layer deposition. Very precise, small-scale stuff.
Space-grade tech made locally. And they also mentioned building telescopes and microscopes, using local quartz and other minerals.
Yes, using that high-purity quartz for superb lenses and mirrors. Maybe using the titanium minerals, ilmenite and rutile, or zircon for coatings or structures.
So building scientific instruments from scratch.
That's the idea, covering everything from optical design, reflecting telescopes, refracting ones, microscope objectives to the actual manufacturing, grinding, polishing glass, applying coatings.
All powered sustainably, I assume?
Yeah, they emphasize using renewable energy and recycling in the manufacturing processes. It really feeds that self-reliance theme.
It does, and this extends to electric motors and actuators, too, for a whole range of things.
A huge range. Transport, obviously the EVs, maybe autonomous shuttles.
Yeah.
Hydrofoil ferries using the local waterways, but also robots.
Robots, what kind?
All sorts, humanoids, but also bio-inspired ones. Robots designed like hummingbirds, octopuses, centipedes, spiders, mimicking nature's efficiency.
Wow, that's specific.
And motors for heavy industry, even for space applications. They get into different motor types, PMSMs, BLDCs, axial flux motors, and even exploring really advanced stuff like superconducting motors or printed electronics.
The sheer scope is just, wow. Okay, now, the Cosmic Nexus document, that hinted at some, let's say, less mainstream research areas?
It did, yeah. It outlines this initiative looking into things like, well, they call it ancient aeronautics, historical accounts of flight, basically.
Which is aeronautics.
And UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. Plus, a really unique angle, integrating AGI, artificial general intelligence, with what they call spiritual science.
Spiritual science? How does AGI fit with that?
The idea seems to be using advanced computation to explore consciousness,
Yeah.
maybe even spiritual principles, trying to ensure AI development aligns with human well-being on like a deeper level. They even mention analyzing ancient texts with AI.
That's unexpected, integrating the mystical with the technological. And
Yeah.
they plan a symposium on this stuff.
An annual one, apparently, to discuss aeronautics, UAPs, this AI spirituality connection.
Okay. In the Space Weather Hub, pseudocode that's more grounded,
Right.
monitoring threats from space.
Much more. It's a plan to pull together tons of data, geophysical, geological, space weather, atmospheric data, all into one place.
Why? What's the goal?
To use machine learning, potentially, to spot patterns and predict risks, especially things like earthquakes,
Yeah.
looking for correlations with solar flares, geomagnetic storms, ionospheric changes.
So trying to forecast quakes based on space weather and Earth data.
That seems to be the ambition, not just observing, but actively forecasting and mitigating potential disasters.
And they mentioned VR visualization for this.
Yeah, imagine putting on a headset and seeing real-time space weather, or the complex gravitational and magnetic dance between the Earth and Moon, or even visualizing what's deep inside the Earth.
How would they visualize inside the Earth?
Using data from mining, core samples, seismic analysis, mapping out the Earth's composition, those LLSVPs we mentioned, maybe focusing on key minerals like olivine, which is important for plate tectonics.
That sounds incredibly powerful for understanding our planet. And this detailed Earth model feeds into their seismic risk system.
That's the plan. Deploying sensors, strain gauges, GPS, thermal cameras, acoustic sensors, feeding all that data into advanced 3D, even 4D visualizations, aiming for a comprehensive earthquake prediction and alert system.
Right, automated alerts and everything. It's
Yeah.
just clear that this entire vision, all these different documents, they paint a picture of something incredibly interconnected and incredibly ambitious.
Definitely. It's not just one breakthrough tech, it's a whole ecosystem they're envisioning, focused on long-term survival, sustainability, resilience, dealing with challenges from Earth and from space.
You've got mine uploading concepts, rubbing shoulders with practical titanium manufacturing, subterranean cities and bio-inspired robots, space-hardened chips made locally, and AI blended with spiritual ideas.
It's a truly multifaceted, almost dizzying vision.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? I mean, when you consider how fast technology is moving and, well, the potential for unexpected global shocks, how could projects like this, these localized, self-sufficient, maybe kind of radical communities, how could they contribute to humanity's future, our
Yeah.
resilience, our flourishing here on Earth, or maybe even out there?
Yeah.
It definitely gives you a lot to chew on, finding that balance between, incredible ambition, real sustainability, and just the sheer unknowns that are always out there.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into something really fascinating, sparked by the materials you shared with us. Think of it as a way to quickly get your head around some pretty big interconnected ideas.
Yeah, we're looking at things like the potential for cities built underground, hyperloop systems, advanced AI.
And even how all that might connect to building a really long-term future, maybe even considering, cosmic level events. It's quite a mix.
It really is. The sources you sent cover a lot of ground VR development guides, serious proposals for huge infrastructure projects, AI agent discussions.
Right. So our mission today is to kind of weave these threads together, see what picture emerges about where things might be heading.
Let's do it. Where should we start? Maybe the subterranean cities?
Okay, yeah, let's start there. This idea of building entire eco-cities underground. One source, Aura of Intelligence, talks about it as a way to, safeguard civilization. So pretty sci-fi initially.
It does, but then you see some of the other documents, like the one on the global subterranean hyperloop and micronova, and they're actually envisioning this stuff on a massive scale.
Massive how?
Well, it mentions a potential crystal city capital of Quandamuka country, underground, needing something like 96 billion cubic meters of excavated material.
96 billion. Wow.
Sure.
What does that even compare to?
Roughly the volume of the Grand Canyon.
The Grand Canyon, okay.
Yeah.
That certainly puts the engineering challenge in perspective.
It absolutely does. But it also hints at, potentially huge amounts of resources becoming available if you undertake something like that.
And that scale ties into transport too, right?
Yeah.
That same document mentions a subterranean hyperloop from Cairns all the way to Antarctica.
Exactly. A truly massive infrastructure vision. And, maybe not quite so impossible when you factor in advances in tunneling technology.
Like the Boring Company's proof rock machine,
Mm-hmm.
trying to speed things up significantly.
Precisely. If tunneling becomes faster and cheaper, these huge underground networks start to seem, well, maybe less far-fetched.
And there's this interesting side idea too. about what to do with all that excavated rock and soil to spoil.
Right. The Hyperloop paper suggests using it for artificial islands, or maybe even extending the continental shelf.
It's that kind of closed-loop thinking again, nothing wasted. But, okay, digging the tunnels is one thing. How do you actually live down there comfortably, safely?
Yeah, that's absolutely crucial. And another source, the Subterranean Crystal City Kardashev Ground Station one, really focuses on that. It talks about environmental control,
Meaning,
meaning sophisticated AI-managed systems for climate control, air filtration, basically creating a completely controlled, stable environment.
so not just shelter, but a sustainable habitat.
Exactly, a habitat safe from surface issues, but also comfortable long term. And the AI part is key, not just automation, but like dynamic adaptation, responding to changes inside that closed system in ways humans probably couldn't manage effectively.
Okay, so we've got these vast underground networks kept habitable by AI.
Hmm.
Let's talk materials. How do you build all this? Where does this stuff come from? Your sources mentioned local resources.
Yes, definitely. The civilization of sand and supercomputers of North Strati documents look specifically at North Stradbroke Island's mineral sands.
What's special about them?
They contain a whole mix of useful stuff, quartz, obviously, but also ilmenite, rutile, zircon, monazite. It's like a ready-made toolkit for advanced manufacturing.
Okay, so what could you make? Ilmenite and rutile.
Yeah.
That's titanium, right?
Yep. And titanium's fantastic for additive manufacturing, 3D printing. Think high strength, lightweight parts for construction, aerospace.
Medical implants even. Locally sourced, potentially.
Exactly. And the quartz.
Yeah.
Perfect for solar panels, which you'd absolutely need for powering these cities sustainably.
Right. Makes sense. What about the others? Monazite.
Monazite contains rare earth elements, crucial for things like the powerful magnets in wind turbines or electric vehicle motors.
So it really is like a local treasure trove. It supports this idea of maybe more self-sufficient technological development, less reliant on global supply chains for every single component.
That seems to be the implication. And it goes further. The supercomputers of North Strati piece even brainstorms making computer chips from the local silica sand.
Really. Competing with the giant chip fabs.
Probably not on mass scale, no. But the idea seems to be more about small batch production, rapid prototyping, maybe customized chips using things like FPGAs.
FPGAs. Field programmable gate arrays. The reconfigurable chips.
Right, allowing for that kind of flexible, fast hardware evolution. And it also touches on other materials beyond silicon gallium nitride, silicon carbide, even 2D stuff like graphene.
So a really diverse material science approach. And didn't one source mention AI actually designing materials?
Ah, yes, the Hyperloop document mentioned Genomi's AI-driven materials specifically for these kinds of projects. So AI isn't just managing the systems, it might be helping invent the very stuff they're built from.
Wow. Okay, that really underlines how central AI seems to be in this whole vision. Let's dig into that a bit more. We mentioned AI managing the environment.
Yeah, the Kardashev ground station source paints AI as the central nervous system almost, managing food production, waste recycling, energy distribution, the whole subterranean ecosystem.
The ultimate operations manager.
Pretty much. And beyond just keeping things running smoothly, it's also talked about for climate control within the cities and even potentially protecting against those cosmic threats we mentioned earlier.
Well, it's a huge responsibility. How would decisions even be made in such a complex AI-managed society?
Well, interestingly, that same source proposes something called AI gamified adaptive governance, using blockchain, apparently, to help with decision-making for both surface and subterranean societies.
Gamified governance. That sounds different.
It's definitely a novel concept, trying to blend AI capabilities with perhaps new forms of collective intelligence or participation.
And then there's this aura of intelligence idea, described as a mixed reality interface aiming for joyful, responsible abundance. What exactly is that?
It sounds like a way to integrate AI much more deeply into the human experience, using XR, VR, AR, mixed reality, not just for data, but maybe for well-being, for guiding actions responsibly.
So AI is a sort of integrated life enhancement system.
That seems to be the goal. And supporting this, another document talks about using AI GPT agents in simulations.
Like chatbots.
More sophisticated than that, like specialized AI agents you train with very specific knowledge, say, about subterranean ecosystems or Hyperloop physics, and then use them to run complex simulations. testing ideas in a virtual sandbox before you build.
Okay, like creating a digital twin of these future systems to experiment safely. That makes sense.
Exactly. And this simulation and predictive power is also key when we talk about potential threats, especially from space.
Right, the space-weather connection. AI analyzing data to predict things like solar micronovas.
Precisely. That idea comes up in the Subterranean city and Hyperloop documents. Using AI to analyze streams of space weather data, solar wind, magnetic fields, flares looking for patterns that might warn of dangerous events, an early warning system,
A cosmic watchtower run by AI.
you could put it that way. And it's not just solar events. One source mentions using AI, maybe combined with VR, to analyze sensor data for predicting seismic activity too.
So using AI to monitor threats both from above and from below ground.
Yeah, a multi-layered safety approach, which brings us back to why someone might seriously consider building underground in the first place, these potential cosmic events.
The solar micronova idea, the catastrophe cycles, the sources mention evidence for, what, 6,000 and 12,000 year cycles?
They do, and talk about possibilities like a galactic-level polarity flip or even a major shift in the Earth's poles.
A 90-degree polar shift. That
Yep.
would redraw the map completely.
It would have catastrophic consequences for surface civilization as we know it. And that possibility, however remote it might seem, could be a driver for developing infrastructure that's fundamentally more resilient. Infrastructure that isn't tied to the current surface geography.
So it's extreme prepping, almost, but on a civilizational scale.
In a way, yes. And the work on monitoring space weather, tracking solar wind, the interplanetary magnetic field, IMF, CMEs, and trying to correlate it with things happening on Earth, like earthquakes.
That's happening now, right? Trying to find those connections.
Yes. The Space Weather Hub pseudocode source gives examples of that. And the IFTTT document details specific queries like using if this then that logic to automatically flag potential pre-seismic signals like electromagnetic anomalies or ionospheric disturbances.
So we're actively looking for the warning signs,
Yeah.
trying to piece together this incredibly complex puzzle of Earth-Sun interactions.
Exactly, which is a perfect lead-in to the final piece. How do we even grasp all this complexity? How do we plan? And that's where VR and XR come back in.
Right. Making the complex visible, understandable.
Precisely. One document, build an aura in Blender, then in Unity XR, talks about using VR not just to see things, but to embed information in new ways, using higher dimensional vectors linked to experiences, to narratives.
Okay, what does that mean in practice, higher dimensional vectors?
Think of it like encoding lots of related data into a single point or object within the VR space, so you can see complex relationships intuitively, rather than just looking at spreadsheets, making abstract data feel more tangible.
So you could interact with the data in a more human way.
That's the idea. And the Cosmic VR and Space Weather News Guide source really runs with this. It suggests using VR to visualize incredibly complex things, Earth-Moon dynamics, seismic forces, solar wind hitting the magnetosphere.
You could scale it, right? Exaggerate things to make them clear.
Yes, with level of detail controls, exaggerated scales, making these vast, powerful, invisible forces something you can actually see and explore. Imagine flying through a representation of the Earth's magnetic field as a solar storm hits.
That would be incredible for understanding it. For education, for research, a potential game changer.
Definitely. And the technical bits mentioned, like using Steam VR to build interaction systems for manipulating these data points, show that people are actively developing the tools to make these kinds of immersive data analysis environments possible.
Okay, so let's try and tie this all together. We've journeyed through these ideas, subterranean cities for resilience,
Powered by locally sourced advanced materials.
managed by sophisticated AI that also watches the skies for cosmic threats.
Connected by potential Hyperloop systems.
And all visualized, understood, and maybe even planned using advanced VR and XR interfaces.
That sums it up pretty well. And it's amazing how these threads, all pulled from the materials you provided, weave together into this coherent, if ambitious, picture of a possible future.
It really shows the depth in those sources. So maybe the final thought for you, our listener, is this. If these kinds of challenges, both earthly and cosmic, are even possibilities on the long horizon,
How might we proactively start integrating these kinds of technologies and ideas? Not just thinking about survival, but about genuinely flourishing long term.
yeah. What's the role of our own curiosity, our drive to explore these complex problems and radical solutions, and actually building that future?
It really makes you think about our responsibility, doesn't it? To look ahead, to innovate, to build resilience. We definitely encourage you to dive back into those source materials yourself and keep exploring. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, you've sent us a really fascinating stack of sources that, well, at first glance, they might seem totally unrelated.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about everything from building, your own virtual reality experiences to seriously thinking about how we might handle large-scale Earth events.
Yeah, it's quite a mix. But believe it or not, there's a really interesting thread kind of weaving its way through all of this.
That's right. So we've got documents looking into creating these immersive VR worlds.
And also the collaboration of AI agents, which is pretty complex stuff.
Right. And even like how you might simulate the development of life itself using code.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Simulating life stages, agent interactions.
And that's just, scratching the surface, really. We're also diving into these plans for a sustainable tech-advanced community envisioned for North Stradbroke Island.
Yeah, using local resources.
Yeah.
And alongside that, discussions about tracking subtle signals, things that might precede earthquakes.
Pre-seismic signals. Yeah. Okay. And then there are these incredibly ambitious concepts, subterranean cities.
And a global hyperloop network, potentially,
Yeah.
as like safeguards against major planetary events.
Wow. Okay.
Plus, we can't forget that organization, the one researching everything from, well, ancient flying machines to UAPs.
UAPs, yeah. And they're also working on cutting-edge AGI, artificial general intelligence.
And even exploring the intersection of AI and what they're calling spiritual science. It's quite a broad scope.
It really is. So your mission, should you choose to accept it, and you kind of already have by tuning in, is to follow us as we try to connect these seemingly disparate dots. We're going to pull out the most compelling bits.
The insights.
And hopefully give you those satisfying aha moments without, completely scrambling your brain.
We're definitely looking for those surprising overlaps.
Yeah.
And what it all might mean for the future collectively.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. Let's unpack this. Maybe start with the virtual reality side of things.
Yeah, I think that's a great entry point because the VR documents, what's really interesting isn't just like creating worlds for fun,
Right.
but using these environments as sophisticated tools, tools for understanding and interacting with really complex information.
Exactly. That excerpt from Build an Aura in Blender, then in Unity XR, it talks about creating these, quote, auras as visual representations of your personal data.
Your data, think about it.
Your memories, your activities, maybe even your general emotional state, all mapped onto this interactive 3D shape. They call it a toroidal mesh.
Like a toroidal mesh,
Yeah.
like a donut shape, basically.
Yeah.
A continuous surface where you can map data onto.
Yeah, exactly.
And interestingly, the document mentions chakras explicitly as a principle for organizing this data.
Chakras, how so?
Well, the idea that the red torus, for example, corresponds to early human experiences, body, mind, environment, that kind of thing. It suggests a structured system for categorizing just vast amounts of personal info in a way that, hopefully makes sense.
So the red torus is representing foundational aspects, kind of like how those energy centers are traditionally understood.
Precisely. It provides a structure for organizing related data points, foundational stuff.
It's like turning your life into a data sculpture you can actually, walk around in. And the document gets pretty technical, doesn't it? It mentions using C# in Unity.
Yeah, programming the interaction, creating that donut mesh.
And then mapping different data onto it, vector data specifically. It even mentions interacting using Steam VR.
Right, so you could actually, grab and manipulate these data points in the virtual space.
It's not just passive viewing, then.
No, definitely not. The system lets you embed new data, connect different pieces of information, build sequences, loops.
Creating what they call higher dimensional vectors, leaving a trace of how things connect.
Exactly. It's almost like building this living, breathing digital autobiography that you can literally step inside.
Okay, wow. And here's where it starts getting really interesting, because then you look at those other documents, the mixture of experts and Mo extended ones, and you see a similar kind of underlying idea, right? Complex systems being broken down and simulated. But this time using AI agents.
Precisely. Yeah, instead of visualizing personal data, here we have AI agents that specialize. Maybe one knows ethics, another law, another healthcare.
Like a team of specialists.
Exactly. And these agents collaborate in simulated environments to tackle really complex problems or tasks.
So the focus is on, how tasks get assigned, how they learn.
Yeah, continuous learning, and even how human feedback gets incorporated into that learning loop. It's quite sophisticated.
Like one AI is an expert in legal stuff, another in medical diagnosis, and they work together.
That's the core idea. Instead of one general AI trying to do everything.
And that pseudocode in MOE Extended, it actually gives you a little peek behind the curtain, doesn't it?
It does. It defines characteristics for agents at different simulated life stages, baby, child, teenager.
Yeah, digital lives.
Yeah, and setting up the simulation parameters, the frameworks. It's all about creating these digital lives to train AI for various fields.
Like helping with dementia care, you mentioned, or improving education.
Those are specific applications mentioned, yes. From dementia assistance to better educational methods.
So if we connect this back, think about the detail needed to simulate even a baby agent.
Right, it's sensory exploration, basic communication attempts.
Now imagine scaling that complexity up, simulating, I don't know, societal interactions, or even the workings of one of those subterranean cities we'll get to.
It's a huge leap, but the principle is there.
Yeah.
Which leads us kind of neatly to the aura of intelligence, a bridge to the infinite document.
Ah, yes. That one seemed like a sort of central hub for a lot of these ideas.
It really does. It talks about building an AGI aura of intelligence.
AGI, Artificial General Intelligence.
Right. And then it lists a whole range of related projects, things like a mind uploader, a world builder.
And an anti-dementia aura of intelligence. That connects back.
Directly. Think of it like a central AI framework, maybe. Highly intelligent, but adaptable. Customizable for different tasks, from creative stuff to deep scientific analysis.
Like a super assistant AI.
Something like that.
Okay.
And what's really significant here is the potential convergence, right, of VR and AI.
How so?
Well, that aura builder or mind uploader project, that could very well be the system creating those personal data auras we talked about earlier.
Ah, I see. Using AI perhaps to help organize and interpret all that personal data.
Exactly. Making sense of it. And the anti-dementia aura concept ties straight back into those AI agent simulations for healthcare.
It feels like these individual threads are starting to weave together now. You've got VR as this powerful way to visualize and interact with complex data, and AI as the engine kind of creating and managing that data, whether it's your personal life story or a simulation of a whole society.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing a pattern, using digital tools to model and understand complexity, personal data, simulated environments.
Okay, so that's the digital realm, but then we bring in the physical world with Civilization of Sand.
Right. And this document lays out a really compelling, quite detailed vision for building a sustainable, technologically advanced civilization, specifically on North Stradbroke Island.
Using the island's own mineral resources. This part really grabbed me.
It's quite practical in its approach, isn't it?
Yeah. They talk about using the local quartz for solar panels, ilmenite and rutile for titanium.
Which could then be used in additive manufacturing, 3D printing, or for wind turbines.
And even the monazite for rare earth elements, crucial stuff for electronics, batteries.
It's all about creating this closed-loop system where local resources directly fuel the innovation and development right there.
And the goal is explicit, isn't it? Progressing on the Kardashev scale.
Yes, aiming to move from what they estimate as a Type 0.9 civilization towards a Type 1.
A Type 1 being able to harness all the energy available on its home planet.
That's the definition, yeah. It's not just about energy, though. It's fundamentally changing our relationship with the planet, achieving a level of self-sufficiency.
Reducing vulnerability.
Exactly. And the plan seems phased. Start with reliable power, move to advanced manufacturing, sustainable housing.
And it's not just tech for tech's sake either. I noticed a strong emphasis on ecological balance, biodiversity.
Definitely. And integrating the ethical, the cultural heritage of the island. There's specific recognition of the indigenous history, which is important.
So this focus on local resources, sustainability, it takes on maybe even greater significance when we look at the next set of documents.
I think so, yeah. The ones dealing with space weather and potential large-scale Earth events.
Right, the Space Weather Data, IFTTT, and Space Weather Hub pseudocode.
These detail efforts to monitor pre-seismic electromagnetic anomalies and disturbances in the ionosphere.
As potential early indicators of earthquakes, like trying to listen to the planet's subtle rumblings.
That's the idea. Using advanced tech to read almost imperceptible signs. They're talking about building systems to ingest and analyze a really wide range of geophysical data.
Geological, space weather, atmospheric conditions.
All of it. with the ultimate goal of developing more accurate earthquake prediction models.
Using tools like Python, Kafka,
Hmm.
which is for handling big data streams in real time, right?
Yeah, and InfluxDB, a database specifically for time series data, like sensor readings over time.
What seems particularly noteworthy here is the potential connection they're exploring between space weather and events on Earth.
The idea that solar activity, things happening way out there,
Yeah.
might influence seismic activity down here. It's a complex area, still under research.
Sure.
But these documents show a commitment to investigating those potential links rigorously through lots of data analysis.
Okay. And then you have Subterranean, Crystal City, Kardashev Ground Station.
And a global subterranean hyperloop and micronova.
These really take the whole preparing for major events idea to a completely different level, scale-wise, I mean.
They absolutely do. These propose developing extensive subterranean eco-cities and this vast global hyperloop network.
As resilient adaptations to potential cosmic threats, they mention solar micronovas specifically.
Yes. The core idea is creating self-sustaining environments deep underground, places that could effectively withstand catastrophic surface events.
The hyperloop concept is just incredibly ambitious, a network of high-speed tunnels underground.
Connecting major Australian cities and even potentially extending all the way to Antarctica.
Antarctica, wow. And the cities themselves, designed as complete self-contained biospheres.
Potentially capable of recreating surface ecosystems deep underground. That seems to be the vision.
It's fascinating. The Subterranean Crystal City document mentions AI gamified adaptive governance within these societies.
Ah, yeah. That brings us full circle, doesn't it? Back to our earlier chat about AI agents and simulations.
Exactly. Perhaps those very AI systems could be crucial in managing the incredibly complex logistics, resource allocation within these underground havens.
It seems very plausible. The level of complexity would certainly demand advanced management systems.
It really does feel like everything is starting to connect now in this almost mind-blowing way.
Doesn't it?
You've got the potential for local resource use on North Stradbroke Island, maybe providing materials for these massive infrastructure projects.
Could be. And the AI systems being developed for healthcare, education.
They could also be absolutely vital for managing life in these future underground cities.
And let's not skip over supercomputers of North Strati.
Right. That brainstorming session.
Yeah.
Focused on developing advanced computer chips.
Potentially even using those local mineral sands found on North Stradbroke Island, specifically for AI applications.
And the priorities there seem to be rapid evolution in chip design.
Yes, exploring alternative materials like gallium nitride, silicon carbide,
Graphene even?
and creating fault-tolerant chips. Chips that keep working even if parts fail.
Which directly supports the need for really robust, powerful AI to manage all these ambitious projects we've been discussing. From monitoring space weather to running subterranean cities.
Exactly. And what's notable is the recognition that mass production isn't the main goal right now.
More like small batch, rapid iteration experimentation.
Yeah, really pushing the boundaries of computing capabilities, which aligns perfectly with the R&D focus we see in that Cosmic Nexus document too.
Ah, yes. Cosmic Nexus UAP, AI, AA, R&D. That describes an organization looking into a really broad spectrum of research, doesn't it?
Super broad.
Yeah.
From ancient aeronautics to investigating UAPs.
And crucially, integrating AI with what they call spiritual science.
And they're actively developing their own research tools, educational curricula.
That organization really seems to embody that interdisciplinary thinking, you know, connecting fields that seem miles apart.
Absolutely. And their emphasis on intellectual property, fostering collaboration, suggests a hub for genuine innovation, cross-pollination of ideas.
So, okay, let's try and sum this up. What does this all boil down to? We started with personal VR auras, and we've ended up talking about potential planetary defense infrastructure. It's a massive leap in scale.
It is. But when you look closer, you can see these underlying themes emerge, can't you?
Yeah, like the incredible power of visualization for understanding complexity.
Definitely. And the immense potential of AI, both for simulation and for real-world problem solving.
And also this growing, maybe crucial awareness of the need for resilience in the face of potential global challenges.
Exactly. And it is striking how North Stradbroke Island keeps popping up across these seemingly unrelated documents.
Yeah, it emerges as this potential focal point, doesn't it, for tech innovation, sustainable living.
And maybe even as a kind of sanctuary against cosmic scale events. It's quite a recurring theme.
So what might this all mean for you listening in?
Well, consider how those VR environments designed for personal reflection.
Hmm.
How they could maybe be adapted for visualizing complex scientific data. Perhaps that subtle seismic activity or atmospheric changes we talked about. That's a great point. Or think about the AI agents being trained for healthcare or education.
Yeah.
How they could potentially be applied to the incredibly complex logistics of running a huge subterranean city. Or that vast Hyperloop network.
The basic principles are the same, aren't they? Collaboration, task assignment, learning.
Exactly. Those core functions are applicable across all these different domains, however different they seem on the surface.
And it's hard to ignore North Stradbroke Island as this potential nexus point.
Developing cutting-edge tech with local materials, respecting the environment, the cultural heritage. It's a powerful combination if it could be realized.
Perhaps the most significant insight here, the big takeaway, is this proactive stance being explored.
Yeah, it's about humanity actively conceiving of these things and taking initial steps to prototype these interconnected systems.
Whether it's a digital map of our inner lives in VR,
Or collaborative AI tackling global challenges.
or these really ambitious infrastructure projects grounded in sustainability and resilience.
It's that real aha moment, isn't it? The realization that we might actually have the potential to design and build resilience proactively.
Instead of just reacting when things happen.
Right. Which raises a really important question, I think.
Go on.
If we can conceive of and even start prototyping these interconnected systems,
Right.
from personal VR auras all the way up to planetary defense infrastructure,
Yeah.
what other seemingly impossible, insurmountable challenges might we find ourselves equipped to tackle in the future?
That's a big question. And maybe what role will your own curiosity, your own personal drive for what one source called joyful, responsible abundance, what role will that play in actually driving this kind of profound innovation forward? This deep dive, it's really just the beginning of the conversation.
Just scratching the surface.
So what will you choose to explore next?
So you've tuned in at a pretty unique time. It's April 2025. And the world's kind of holding its breath, With the passing of the Catholic Pope, there's this global sense of quiet.
Yeah, it really feels like a pause moment, doesn't it? A time to maybe look back, but also look forward.
Exactly. Reflect on how we got here, the stories we tell, and maybe, just maybe, get a glimpse of what's next. And some of the possibilities are, well, pretty mind-bending.
Absolutely. And the materials we're looking at today, they really capture that feeling. It's like a crossroads. We've got everything from like deep personal relationships to cosmic events.
Right, ancient myths, hidden worlds, super advanced tech that sounds straight out of sci-fi.
It seems all over the place at first glance, maybe. But the connections, the threads between them, that's what makes this deep dive interesting, I think.
Yeah.
Our goal is really to pull on those threads, see how these different ideas might actually link up, and, maybe find some aha moments without getting totally lost in the weeds.
Okay, let's dive in then. And I gotta say, the first thing that really jumped out at me, the one that made me stop and go, wait, seriously,
Yeah.
was this whole global group marriages idea.
Yes. That one definitely catches the eye.
We've got this document talking about a future with ethically non-monogamous relationships. Okay, fine. But involving not just multiple humans, but also embodied AGI entities.
Yeah, AI with actual physical forms, it's a lot to unpack.
It really is.
But what's interesting is how much thought seems to have gone into it already. It's not just a wild idea thrown out there. There's this proposed platform, the Aura startup, Assistant GPT,
Right.
designed to facilitate these relationships with a big focus on empathy, love, sensuality, even sexuality across humans and AGI.
So like a super advanced dating app meets relationship counselor for the future.
Sort of, yeah. But with this ethical layer baked in from the start.
And it's not just, chaos, right?
Yeah.
The document mentions legal stuff, prenups, marriage contracts for relationships, including AI.
Exactly. Which, talk about opening a can of worms legally and ethically.
Totally. Imagine the court cases.
But the fact they're thinking about it now at the concept stage suggests they're trying to be, thorough. And then there's the aura of intelligence idea.
Yeah. What is that exactly? It sounds intense.
It's proposed as this system that monitors what users do based on values they select, like virtues, honesty, transparency.
Wait, monitors how?
Well, this is where it gets even more sci-fi. The document mentions monitoring biosignatures, heart rate, maybe other things, to ensure people are being honest within the community.
Whoa. An AI lie detector built into your relationship platform.
Essentially, yeah. It's about cultivating a community based on specific ethical lines, policed by AI using biological feedback.
That's a concept, a big one.
And it ties into this aura entry ritual idea, too, an XR consent ceremony.
Extended reality, so like VR or AR.
Yeah, guided by an AI priestess or avatar, asking these embodied questions, not just clicking I agree, but like feeling a yes, no, or maybe in a virtual space.
Okay, so really leaning into the technology to manage and even structure these very novel kinds of relationships.
It positions tech not just as a tool, but almost as a microtech, an architect of community and connection.
Which makes you wonder, what does that do to our old ideas of family partnership?
That's the big question. How do societies adapt when the basics start to shift so dramatically? And bringing AGI into the mix as potential partners, that leads us right into thinking about AI's bigger role and maybe bigger threats too.
Right, because existential threats are definitely part of this picture.
Yeah.
We see AGI in the marriage concept, but then there's also talk of DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations.
Yeah, specifically this GAJRA Earth crypto DAO mentioned in a couple of places, focused on joyful, social, and environmental responsibility.
Joyful responsibility. That sounds
like this.
optimistic.
It does. It's just a move towards maybe more community-driven, bottom-up ways of tackling big problems, using blockchain tech for organization and decision-making.
Okay, so that's one response to potential crises, but then the documents also mention a solar micronova.
Ah, yeah. The really big one, an existential threat on a cosmic scale.
Which sounds terrifying, frankly.
It is, but in the context of these documents, it's presented less as a guaranteed doom and more as a catalyst, a reason to think about really radical adaptations, like living underground.
Subterranean cities,
Yeah,
because of a potential solar event.
exactly. The idea of a solar micronova catastrophe cycle is used as the backdrop for envisioning these incredibly advanced underground cities.
And connecting that to space weather makes sense then. This space weather hub, its job is prediction.
A critical role, yeah. Trying to predict these massive events, or maybe just more normal space weather that still affects us. It's about developing this foresight capability, almost like planetary self-awareness.
And the tech sounds intense, integrating all this data, solar wind, magnetic fields, CMEs, sunspots.
Right, and combining it with auth data, seismic activity, atmospheric changes, geological stuff.
Using platforms like Apache Kafka for streaming data, InfluxDB for time series stuff, it sounds like a massive data challenge.
Huge, but incredibly ambitious. The goal mentioned is aiming for like 1 hour warnings for major earthquakes, magnitude 7 plus.
An hour warning for a huge earthquake. That would be revolutionary.
Absolutely. By using machine learning to find patterns across all these different data sets, solar, lunar tides, seismic, looking for those hidden connections.
So everything's connected. The sun, the moon, the Earth's crust.
That's the running theme, yeah. Interconnectedness, and trying to understand it, predict it.
And this connects back to the individual too, right? This aura of intelligence, building digital twins for well-being.
Seems so. Extending our self-awareness using tech. There's even this idea of visualizing your aura in VR.
Visualizing an aura, how?
Using concepts like chakras, the energy centers from, Eastern traditions, representing them as nested tori, like donut shapes in VR, using Blender or Unity, and then mapping data onto that geometry.
So mapping your personal data, health data, onto a visual representation of your energy field.
Potentially, yeah. It's a wild blend of like spirituality and data visualization.
Which kind of brings us neatly to this whole section on auras, aliens, angels, demons, gods, underworlds, all the really deep mythic stuff.
Right, because alongside these futuristic tech ideas, there's this parallel track exploring ancient concepts of hidden realms.
Like Agartha, the supposed hidden kingdom inside the earth, advanced, enlightened.
Or the Egyptian Duat, the underworld, but not just darkness, a place of gods, spirits, its own rules, maybe even its own kind of technology.
And then there's the darker side, like the Shaver mystery stuff, with the Diero. Malevolent beings underground with ray guns.
Yeah, a much more paranoid Pulp Fiction take on the subterranean idea. And then you have things like Shambhala from Tibetan lore, more mystical, an ideal kingdom hidden away.
So a whole spectrum from like enlightened utopias to hellish underworlds.
Exactly. And while these are myths, legends, they obviously tap into something deep in the human psyche. This fascination with hidden worlds, powerful forces, things just beyond our perception.
Maybe early ways of explaining mysteries, or even inner states.
Could be. And it resonates with how we're now thinking about, merging old spirituality with new science and AGI.
Yeah, that interdisciplinary framework mentioned.
Yeah.
Trying to understand consciousness using both computational models and, like, spiritual principles.
It's about finding common ground, maybe, or new ways of looking at old questions, like that sacred geophysical choreography idea.
Linking space weather prediction with earth care rituals. That sounds poetic.
It is, isn't it? It suggests moving beyond just data towards incorporating intention, meaning maybe ritual, into our relationship with the planet and cosmos.
And this ties back to the social structures, too. That Love UN simulacrum, built on the aura systems.
Yeah, framing those global group marriages, not just as relationships, but as a potential evolution of global networks, even governance, very grand scale thinking.
It's like taking those old myths of hidden advanced civilizations
Agartha, the Dua.
and reimagining them with today's tech. These super eco-subterranean cities, run by AI, acting as biosphere reserves in case of disaster.
Exactly. Self-sustaining ecosystems underground, capable of recreating the surface world if needed, echoes of the myths, but with an ecological survival focus. Part of that whole aura of intelligence, a bridge to the infinite ecosystem.
So humanity looking inward, outward, and downward, preparing for anything, which leads to the adventures of the future.
Right, thinking really long-term, like the Kardashev scaling dashboard.
Powered by AI, monitoring planetary health, cosmic events, suggesting adaptations, like a real-time guide for civilization's progress.
Pretty much. Trying to manage our development on a planetary, even interplanetary scale, and thinking about the tools needed for that future.
Like developing space-hardened computer chips locally, on North Stradbroke Island, no less.
Yeah, that supercomputers of North Strati idea. Building advanced, resilient tech using local resources responsibly. Pushing computation, maybe enabling better AI, deeper space exploration.
And running simulations, interplanetary simulations in AI sandboxes.
Testing out big ideas for future human ventures beyond Earth. Modeling colonies, resource use, all that stuff.
Which brings us full circle, almost, back to North Stradbroke Island, Strati. It presented as a real-world testbed for a lot of this.
Kind of a microcosm, yeah. Transforming the island using its resources, sand, minerals, but in an eco-sensitive way, with cutting-edge tech.
Focusing on the community aspect, too. Amity, Point Lookout, Dunwich, working together.
Seems to be a key part. A cooperative approach, supporting local businesses, clubs, maybe a local media station connecting everyone.
Connecting Strati to the mainland, Brisbane, the coasts.
Yeah.
Especially thinking about things like the 2032 Olympics, environmental projects.
Exactly. Using that local focus as a springboard for wider collaboration, but grounded in that community spirit.
So Strati becomes this model for sustainable transformation, using initiatives like JAJR Earth, the aura of intelligence.
Potentially, yeah. A tangible example of how these sometimes abstract global ideas might actually play out on the ground.
Wow. Okay. So pulling it all together, we've touched on evolving relationships, AI becoming deeply integrated, cosmic awareness, existential risks.
And this constant thread of myth, hidden knowledge, human ingenuity, trying to make sense of it all, or even shape it.
And coming back to this moment, April 2025, the Pope's passing. It really does feel symbolic, doesn't it? Like maybe the end of one chapter.
And the potential beginning of many new, very different ones. The forces we've talked about, personal, technological, cosmic, mythic, they're all churning.
The future feels very much up for grabs, maybe more than ever.
Which leaves a big thought for you, listening right now. How do you see these different threads weaving together? The changes in relationships, the rise of AI, our place in the universe, these old stories resurfacing.
How might that intersection shape not just the big picture, but your future, your life?
It's definitely something to mull over, a prompt to maybe look around with fresh eyes and consider the transformations that might be closer than we think. We really encourage you to explore these ideas further, dig into the sources if you can, and just think about the possibilities.
Ever stumble upon an idea that just grabs you and makes you go, wait, what if?
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of the headspace we're in today. We've been digging into this, well, wild collection of material.
It's quite a mix, isn't it?
It really is, from, big picture concepts and technical blueprints right down to a rather intriguing love poem, all centered around this fascinating, definitely ambitious idea, global group marriages.
Right.
So our mission today, basically, to cut through the noise, pull out the important bits, and give you the core insights into what this could all actually mean.
Exactly. And this isn't just like a minor tweak to how we do relationships.
Yeah.
It's a concept that really tries to weave together social innovation and some, frankly, seriously advanced technology. It's really interesting, I think, is how it challenges our fundamental understanding of, connection in the modern age.
Okay, so when we say global group marriages, it's
Yeah.
important to clarify we're not just talking about, say, polyamory on a bigger scale, right?
Not exactly, no. The sources describe it more as a platform specifically for sophisticated, ethically non-monogamous relationships.
Right. Sophisticated and ethical.
Yeah. Think of it as trying to build a global network that actively supports and facilitates these kinds of connections, moving beyond the traditional boundaries of marriage as we generally know it.
And what's fascinating, as you pointed out, is its direct link to Gauge Our Earth and the Aura of Intelligence network.
It seems like those are the underlying frameworks. Maybe Gauge Our Earth is the overall infrastructure.
And the Aura of Intelligence is the AI brainpower behind it.
Possibly, yeah, aimed at using tech to foster deeper and maybe more diverse understanding and bonds between people.
And this Aura of Intelligence, it seems pretty central, doesn't it?
Definitely comes up a lot.
One document details the super assistant. They envision it as not just smart and capable, but also genuinely approachable.
Right, like blending cutting-edge AI with a real sense of human connection or warmth.
Exactly. There's even a mention of an updated profile picture. A beautiful woman. No text suggesting they're aiming for a sophisticated, engaging first impression.
That image choice, it kind of speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It highlights the intention to make this really advanced system feel intuitive and human right from the start, emphasizing connection, ease of use.
Okay, so if you were going to build a platform like this, I mean, where would you even begin? It looks like they've put a lot of thought into the online side.
Oh, definitely. Detailed plans for a website, a style guide covering everything from the brand look to colors, fonts, the whole package.
Right. The planned website structure itself is pretty extensive. You've got the usual suspects, like homepage, about us, how it works.
Standard stuff. But when you start digging into the details of each section, that's where you see the real ambition.
Exactly. We're talking dedicated areas for submitting formal documents, entering personal details, even interactive checklists to guide users through what could be a complex process.
Yeah, trying to make it as smooth as possible, it seems.
And beyond those core functions, the planned subsections really show the depth of thinking here.
Like what?
Well, there's the scholarship program mentioned, which hints at wanting broad accessibility, maybe.
Interesting.
Then you have a huge focus on legal information, prenuptial agreements, marriage contracts, specific terms of use, and privacy policy.
Wow, okay. So they're taking the legal side of multi-partner relationships very seriously from the get-go.
Seems like it. Which you'd have to, right, especially across different countries and legal systems.
Absolutely essential.
And it doesn't stop there. They're planning a community section, forums, member stories, events.
Building the social fabric.
Exactly. And a comprehensive support area, too. FAQs, counseling, tech help. It feels like they're anticipating the need for a really strong support system.
Which makes sense for such a, well, non-traditional model.
Precisely. And we can't overlook the dating app component. That seems like it would be the main engine for making those initial connections.
Right. Plan to include features, guides, success stories, all that.
Plus, a blog covering topics like ethical non-monogamy, relationship advice, and even how AGI might intersect with human interactions.
So they want to educate and build a kind of knowledgeable community around this.
Yeah, it paints a picture of a whole ecosystem, really.
A very comprehensive one.
They're even considering the smaller details, like a Contact Us page, individual user accounts with dashboards, messaging, settings.
The goal seems to be making the whole experience user-friendly, seamless.
Which naturally leads us to the big question, who actually gets to be part of this?
Yes, the application process.
It's described as starting with a warm and encouraging introduction.
Okay, sounds nice.
But that initial welcome seems to lead into a very detailed set of eligibility criteria.
Right. It sounds like they're looking for quite specific things. People of a certain age, obviously open to non-traditional relationships.
Deeply committed to the principles of ethical non-monogamy.
And even having a specific interest in how humans and advanced AI might interact, it's a pretty defined profile thereafter.
And the application requirements themselves go way beyond just, basic info.
How so?
They mention needing government-issued ID, a comprehensive overview of family and cultural background,
Okay.
a declaration of current financial status, and a personal statement focusing on honesty, empathy, and trust.
Wow. That signals a significant commitment to really vetting potential members thoroughly.
And here's where it gets, well, really interesting, maybe even a bit intense.
Oh.
The documents explicitly outline a plan to hire private investigators and financial auditors.
Get out.
Really?
Yep, to verify the accuracy of the applications and even, get this, the development of their own aura of intelligence.
That is a level of due diligence you rarely, if ever, see.
It makes you wonder about the level of trust, doesn't it?
Wow.
Or maybe the need for absolutely verifiable information in this model.
It certainly underscores the high stakes involved
Yeah.
and the emphasis they're placing on creating a trustworthy environment.
And the warning to applicants is apparently quite blunt.
How so?
They stress absolute honesty, pointing out that their aura of intelligence will be actively monitoring user activity.
Monitoring.
Yeah, even analyzing biosignatures, it says, to potentially uncover inconsistencies based on the values and virtues the person claims to have.
Analyzing biosignatures. Okay,
Yeah.
that's something else.
And the consequence for dishonesty. Stark. Immediate revocation of membership. No second chances, it seems.
Wow. So high bar for entry, intense verification, and continuous monitoring via AI.
Exactly. Which brings us back to this aura concept. It keeps popping up.
Right. And it sounds like it's much more than just, a fancy digital profile.
Way more. The technical plans describe it as a digital twin, potentially something you could experience in XR extended reality.
A digital twin in VR or AR.
Okay, the idea is to integrate emotional and energetic data, their words, with information from smart devices, like health trackers. It even references concepts like chakras, memories, intentions.
So trying to create a dynamic, evolving digital representation of a person on multiple levels?
That seems to be the goal. And what's technically ambitious here is the plan to build this using software like Blender and Unity XR.
The same tools used for high-end games and virtual reality experiences.
Exactly. They're talking about generating complex 3D structures like toroidal meshes and mapping all sorts of data onto them.
There's mention of using the C# programming language too.
Right, for handling the data structures,
Yeah.
creating interactive elements within this virtual space, managing the UI in VR,
It gets pretty granular. They talk about tracking how users interact within their aura.
and allowing them to save favorite interactions,
Yeah.
like pinning important moments or insights within this virtual self.
Yeah, exactly. Pins in the VR world, essentially. And there's also a hint at using machine learning to analyze the vast amounts of data within each aura.
It sounds like they're aiming for a deeply personalized, maybe even potentially self-aware digital representation.
It definitely suggests a move far beyond a static online profile, more like a dynamic, evolving digital counterpart.
Which could potentially act as a primary interface for interaction and self-understanding within this whole network.
Given this deep integration of tech and very personal data, the ethical side becomes crucial.
Absolutely. And the documents do address this. They introduce something called the Aura Covenant Core, Guardian of Values Protocol,
Okay, sounds official.
described explicitly as being rooted in the platform's ethical framework.
And this leads to another really unusual concept, the aura entry ritual.
Right. As an alternative to just clicking I agree on pages of terms and conditions.
So what is it?
Picture this, an XR consent ceremony, guided by an AI avatar, maybe like a virtual guide or priestess,
Okay.
asking a series of embodied yes-no-maybe questions. Things focused on core ethical considerations, love, bullying, whether someone derives pleasure from others' pain.
Wow. So an experiential way to establish consent and shared values rather than just reading text.
Exactly. It's a fascinating departure from standard legal agreements, isn't it?
Definitely. Moving towards something maybe more personally impactful for establishing those ethical boundaries.
Now let's shift gears slightly to the more aspirational side of all this.
The vision part.
Yeah, the love poem, for instance, dedicated apparently to the listener and the overall vision. It offers a glimpse into the grander ambitions here.
Using phrases like,
Things like a vision woven in love's cosmic dance, symphony of souls, visionary ballet. It really conveys a sense of profound connection, shared purpose.
very high-flown language.
Definitely. And there's even this abstract image concept designed to represent an AI's sentiment featuring a glowing, heart-shaped constellation, interconnected glowing orbs.
Leaning heavily into this idea of deep, almost spiritual connection, but facilitated by technology.
Right. So if we zoom out again and look at the really broad implication,
Your future stuff.
yeah, the documents touch briefly on protopian futures of marriage,
Protopian, meaning.
like constantly improving, not a fixed utopia. The idea seems to be ever-evolving, decentralized, interconnected relationship structures.
Okay. Suggesting a future where different forms of love and commitment could be recognized and integrated.
Within a system built on, presumably, trust and consent, enabled by this tech.
And it gets even more forward-thinking, doesn't it?
It does. They even mention the potential for fractal unions by consent in future orbital and off-world settlements.
Fractal unions in space.
Yeah. Suggesting that the unique economic and social realities of, say, a Mars colony might actually drive the evolution of entirely new relationship models, economic imperatives, shared resources.
Wow. That really pushes the boundaries of how we think about relationships and community, hinting that both necessity and innovation could lead to completely new ways people connect, literally beyond Earth.
So to try and bring it all together, global group marriages seems to be this profoundly ambitious endeavor.
Definitely ambitious.
Merging advanced tech AI, XR, with a pretty radical reimagining of how we form intimate relationships.
And attempting, at least on paper, to build in ethical considerations right from the foundation.
What really stands out, I think, is just the sheer scope of it all.
Yeah, from the AI super assistant designed to be warm,
To the rigorous vetting involving PIs and auditors.
the immersive aura digital twin concept.
And these long-term possibilities stretching out into space settlements, it's a lot.
It certainly gives you a lot to think about.
So maybe a final thought for you, the listener. How might technology, like the kind we've discussed, fundamentally change our understanding of love, commitment, community, in the years ahead?
Yeah, and what could be the potential effects, both positive and negative, presumably, on individual freedom, on the very fabric of our societies, as concepts like this continue to develop or inspire others?
It's definitely worth pondering the evolving definitions of family and the potential role of advanced AI in our most personal connections. It really strikes me how, well, across pretty much all human societies, there's this kind of unbreakable thread, this fascination with the unexplained, tales of hidden worlds under our feet, cosmic dramas way up above, and these strange, compelling stories right here on the surface, these mysteries, these legends, they just feel, well, part of who we are.
Absolutely. And it's pretty remarkable that even now, 2025, standing right here on the edge of really advanced AI, maybe even emergent superintelligence, we're still drawn to these ancient narratives. Think about it. We're talking neural networks 1 minute, and the next you hear these echoes of ancient prophecies, right? End of days stuff followed by like 1,000 years of peace. What's that about?
Okay, right, let's dig into that. Where exactly do these timeless wonders meet the actual tech leaps we're seeing?
Yeah.
Where does the story, the powerful story, become something like a genuine belief or maybe a future path?
Yeah.
That's what we're exploring today. And we're looking at it through a really interesting lens, these ambitious projects by Luke Catalyst Nathan Hayes down in Strathie, Queensland, Australia. He's trying to weave together like deep history with these, what do they call them? Protopian futures.
Utopian futures, yeah. It's about incremental progress towards betterment, not some perfect, unattainable utopia.
Right. And he's coming at it with this really open mind, optimism, adventure. Not really trying to nail down true or false, just exploring the possibilities.
Which honestly makes it great ground for us to explore too. Our goal isn't to debunk anything or, endorse wild theories.
Yep.
It's more about understanding the links, the sparks of inspiration, and maybe where these old mysteries kind of peel away from modern tech dreams. And for you listening, if you're intrigued by all this, but maybe want to skip the feeling of being totally overwhelmed, this deep dive is, well, we've tailored it to map out that exact terrain for you.
Exactly. And to do that, we've pulled together some really diverse stuff. We've got documents on global group marriages.
Intriguing title.
And this concept called the aura of intelligence. Then there are notes on using Blender and Unity XR for developing this aura.
Okay, so practical application stuff too.
Yeah, and discussions on mixture of experts, AI agents. There's a doc called Civilization of Sand, focusing right on North Stradbroke Island's resources and future.
Strategy itself, yeah.
Plus, explorations of space weather, how it might link to geological stuff, material on subterranean crystal cities, Kardashev-scale civilizations.
Yeah.
And even brainstorming for building supercomputers with local resources. It's quite the collection.
It really is. And our mission today is basically to sift through all this and pull out the most interesting connections, the insights. We want to see how these pieces, which seem pretty different on the surface, actually relate to this theme of myth, mystery, tech, future visions, especially how they shape Luke's big plans for Stratty.
Okay, so let's start where so many old stories do, like literally beneath our feet. Hidden worlds. These inner Earth ideas. I was glancing at these Wikipedia bits on Agartha and Shambhala.
Oh, the classics.
Yeah. And it's amazing how persistent they are, right? These huge underground kingdoms, often tied to enlightenment or super advanced tech. Why do these myths stick around so powerfully?
Well, that persistence is key, isn't it? And the fact they pop up across different cultures, Agartha often linked more to Western esoteric stuff than connected to Tibetan legends. It speaks to this hope for a hidden, maybe pure civilization with lost knowledge, lost tech.
Right, something hidden away.
And Shambhala, which is really deep in Tibetan Buddhism, it's more of a spiritual ideal, a realm of peace, enlightenment. Whether people took them literally or symbolically, these myths tap into something deep, a desire for something more, maybe something better, hidden from our messy reality.
And then you've got the legend of Akakor, the
Yeah.
Amazon. That one's really vivid, lost tribes, alien ancestors, golden cities underground. This whole secret history. It's called pseudo-history, obviously. No real proof.
Right.
But it hits all those classic underground story beats, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And while, academics dismiss Akakor, you have to remember the sheer mystery of the Amazon, right? Plus, there are huge cave systems there, like Cueva de los Tallos. It's fertile ground for these legends.
Right.
What's interesting with Akakor is how it seems to blend some genuine indigenous traditions. Lots of
Yeah.
Amazonian groups have origin myths about coming from underground with these more modern, almost sci-fi elements. It shows how these ancient themes get respun, still grabbing our imagination.
So how did we get from maybe people literally believing in these places way back when to how we see them now?
Yeah.
Feels like the idea of like whole civilizations living inside the earth is mostly on the fringes today, but it hasn't totally vanished.
That's a good way to put it. As we learn more about geology, about the Earth's structure, the literal belief faded from the mainstream, but the archetypes, the core ideas, they hang on. Well, you see proponents kind of adapting the myths, right? Suggesting maybe the entrances are hidden by advanced tech or it's all a government cover-up, especially when, the supposed openings at the poles don't show up.
Oh, yeah.
The basic appeal, this idea of a hidden, maybe better realm that sticks around, just dressed up in more modern clothes like technology or conspiracy.
Which loops us right back to Luke's vision. His Subterranean Crystal City Kardashev ground station document. He's outlining plans for super eco-subterranean cities on Quandamuka country, North Stradbroke Island. This isn't finding old myths. It's proposing a future we might actually build. What's the core idea?
Resilience seems to be the main driver. Resilience against potential big problems on the surface. He's talking about creating totally self-contained ecosystems underground,
Self-contained how?
like closed-loop life support, vertical farms for food, AI managing the whole environment, tech like biosphere reserves, protecting biodiversity. It's basically a strategy for keeping civilization going, maybe even regenerating the surface if something catastrophic happened. It definitely echoes that ancient desire for a safe haven, but it's all future tech focused.
So not just hiding, but building a whole working world down there. What kind of tech does that even take? Sounds incredibly complex.
Oh, it's a massive undertaking. The document mentions AI-driven climate control, trying to precisely copy surface ecosystems. That alone is a huge leap.
Wow.
And it includes serious shielding against cosmic threats, specifically mentioning solar micronovas. This probably ties into those AI discussions in the Mixture of Experts stuff, using really sophisticated AI for simulations, predictive modeling, trying to engineer defenses against those kinds of events, basically integrating knowledge about the underground geology with shielding tech.
Okay, from deep underground to outer space. Quite the jump. Let's pivot to these heavenly realms, cosmic events. I saw those documents, Space Weather Data, IFTTT, and Space Weather Hub's pseudocode, monitoring solar stuff and how it might affect Earth. How does this fit the myth and mystery theme?
Well, the link is how those ancient fears, those prophecies about celestial chaos, can be looked at through what we now understand about space weather scientifically.
Yeah, okay.
These docs detail watching solar wind speed, density, the interplanetary magnetic field, sunspots, CMEs, coronal mass ejections, and how they can cause geomagnetic storms, mess with the ionosphere, which could impact our tech, maybe even the environment itself.
And it even mentions, could these space events link to things inside the Earth, like earthquakes? That sounds wild.
It is fascinating. The Space Weather Data IFTT doc explores that hypothesis pre-seismic electromagnetic anomalies, ionospheric disturbances potentially hinting at earthquakes. Yeah, it mentions research into how space weather might influence tectonic stress or even trigger quakes through electromagnetic effects, or by affecting the crust and ionosphere somehow. The science is definitely still developing, but it suggests, maybe our planet and the sun are more interconnected than we usually think.
So are they actually aiming to use this data to predict earthquakes better? That would be huge.
That's the ambition, yeah. The material talks about maybe building a real-time hub, pulling in all the space weather data, atmospheric readings, maybe even crowdsourced info.
Like citizen science.
Kind of, yeah. And using machine learning to spot patterns, anomalies that might come before big quakes. The goal mentioned is aiming for maybe a 1-hour warning for magnitude 7 or higher quakes.
A 1-hour warning.
But they're also realistic, acknowledging how complex and chaotic earthquakes are. Accurate prediction is still a massive scientific hurdle.
But thinking back to Luke's underground cities, you mentioned solar micronova cycles as a threat. How does that connect with those end-of-days prophecies you find everywhere?
It looks like Luke's vision tackles that intersection head-on. The Subterranean Crystal City document says outright these habitats are designed with that potential threat, solar micronovas, in mind.
So it's built into the plan.
Exactly. The plan involves sophisticated predictive modeling, probably using ideas from the Space Weather Hub stuff to understand these cycles better, and then using that knowledge to engineer serious safety measures underground, combining the geophysical knowledge of the location with specific shielding tech against intense solar radiation. It's a very practical, tech-driven answer to a very old human fear about cosmic disaster.
Okay, wow. So we've gone deep underground, out to space. Let's pull back to the surface now, specifically North Stradbroke Island. Luke's plans there, from civilization of sand and those other bits. What's the big picture for transforming Strati itself?
The vision is seriously transformative. It's about turning North Stradbroke Island into a highly advanced civilization, but one that's also deeply eco-conscious. The core idea is using the island's own mineral resources: quartz, ilmenite, rutile, zircon, monazite.
The mineral sands.
Exactly. Using those along with renewable energy and advanced manufacturing like 3D printing. The long game, framed using the Kardashev scale, is pushing humanity from where we are now, maybe type 0.9, towards mastering planetary energy type 1, and maybe even stellar energy type 2. It's a huge vision, blending tech progress with environmental care.
How do they actually plan to use those local resources? That's where it gets real, right?
Yeah, and Civilization of Sand gives some cool examples. For building stuff sustainably, they're looking at geopolymer concrete made from local materials, much lower carbon footprint than normal cement.
Okay.
For energy, using silicon from the island's quartz for solar power, and maybe titanium alloys from ilmenite and rutile for advanced wind turbines. They're even looking at nanomaterials from titanium dioxide for things like self-cleaning surfaces or better solar energy capture. It's all about creating this kind of closed-loop system, local resources driving sustainable tech.
Now, this term keeps coming up, aura of intelligence, in docs like AOI Super Assistant and Build an Aura in Blender. What is this aura? How does it fit into the Strati plan? It sounds a bit mystical.
The name might sound that way, but it seems to be a core piece of tech. It's described as a kind of artificial general intelligence, an AGI, functioning as a super advanced personal assistant.
Like Siri on steroids.
Way beyond that, it seems. It's envisioned as a system of digital twins for people, representing their physical state, mental state, even their presence in a decentralized digital world like Web3.
A digital twin. Wow.
Yeah, and the aura is tied directly to well-being, potentially giving insights for health. Civilization of Sand mentions it being used in Live Aid 2025, maybe using XR extended reality and HUD's heads-up displays to connect people globally, promote shared values. So think of it like a personalized AI ecosystem for everyone, a digital reflection helping them navigate this advanced society.
Global group marriages. Another concept from that AOI document. That sounds pretty unconventional. How does that fit in?
That's definitely one of the more future-facing ideas. It looks like a framework to allow for really diverse ethical relationship structures, potentially even including embodied AGI entities as partners.
AI partners. Seriously.
That seems to be the implication. The documents stress the need for strong ethical guidelines, trust building, using biosignatures via the aura for authenticity and safety within these complex relationships. It's pitched as progressive, inclusive, fitting with the aura's values and this broader GJRA Earth thing.
Right, GJRA Earth, that acronym keeps appearing. What is that exactly? How's it connected?
GAJRA Earth stands for Global Association for Joyful Responsible Abundance on Earth. It's described as a crypto DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization.
So run by code and token holders, not a typical company structure.
Exactly. And its focus is heavily on promoting social and environmental responsibility. The GAJRA token is meant to incentivize actions aligned with those values, and it's designed to be deeply plugged into the aura of intelligence ecosystem.
So doing good gets rewarded within this system.
Basically, yeah. It connects to Live Aid 2025, the goal of a sentient digital superintelligence in harmony with humanity and the environment. It's all woven together.
Okay, and finally, this brainstorming doc, supercomputers of North Strati. It sounds like they're planning to push computing frontiers right there, too.
Absolutely. But the idea isn't mass production like Intel or whatever. It's more about exploring rapid, small batch evolution of computer chips, really pushing towards the theoretical limits of computing power.
Using local sand again?
Well, they're considering using local mineral sands if it's feasible technologically and doesn't hurt performance. But there's also this really interesting concept mentioned, a keystone of consciousness chip.
What now?
A chip designed with built-in guarantees for free will, resilience, something that could maintain core functions even if the more complex AI parts go haywire unexpectedly. It shows they're thinking really deeply about the ethics of advanced AI.
Okay. Wow. We've covered a lot of ground, ancient inner worlds, cutting-edge supercomputers. Let's try to pull some threads together. Where do those old myths of underground havens actually connect with Luke's very real tech-based plan for subterranean cities?
The connection is that deep human desire for a safe place.
Right.
A sanctuary from threats. Ancient myths had these underground realms as places of enlightenment or just survival.
Right.
Those myths didn't usually have a scientific leg to stand on, but Luke's plans are all engineering, resource management, AI sustainability. The impulse safety continuity is similar, but the methods are totally different, reflecting how much more we know and can do now.
And what about the link between those ancient fears of cosmic doom, the stuff you see in prophecies, and our modern scientific grasp of solar flares, CMEs, potential micronovas?
Again, it's a shared concern about existential threats from space. Old prophecies warned of celestial disasters. Today, we understand the science behind things like solar flare.
We can measure them.
Exactly. So Luke's approach isn't about reading omens or praying. It's proactive tech preparedness. Monitoring these events, designing infrastructure above and below ground to handle the fallout. It's a shift from faith-based responses to science and engineering solutions.
It's also fascinating how AI itself, this potential superintelligence mentioned in the mixture of experts doc, feels like a new kind of mystery. How is that being woven into Luke's big picture?
Oh, AI is totally central. It's the brain for the underground eco-cities, the engine for predicting cosmic events, a key part of the aura for connecting people and helping well-being, maybe even a participant in new relationship models like global group marriages.
So it's everywhere in the plan.
Pretty much. The mystery is where AI ultimately goes, how it develops. But Lou's approach seems to be about harnessing it while really stressing the ethics, the alignment with human values like that keystone of consciousness chip idea shows.
So when it comes down to it, what's the biggest difference between those purely imaginary underground worlds from myths and Luke's very practical goal of building self-sufficient high-tech eco-civilizations? Where does the fiction really split from this potential reality?
The foundation, I think. Mythical places like Agartha were often imagined as already existing, filled with enlightened beings working on principles outside our science.
Found, not made.
Exactly. Luke's vision, ambitious as it is, starts from known science, resource analysis, cutting-edge tech. It's about actively building a resilient future with the tools we have, not stumbling upon a hidden utopia. The human agency, the tech development, that's the key difference.
And but Lewis' whole approach just screams this open-minded optimism, this sense of adventure, right?
Yeah.
Blending deep history with these protopian ideas without getting hung up on is it true, is it false.
Yeah.
It really taps into that curiosity, that desire for aha moments that, you listening probably appreciate too.
Precisely. His plans are so ambitious, from underground cities to global stuff like Live Aid 2025 and JJRR. It really embodies that spirit of exploring what's possible.
Yeah.
And JIJRA, with its token system rewarding good actions and integrating with the aura, it offers a kind of practical engine for this evolutionary movement he talks about. It's taking these big stories, ancient past, imagined future, and actively trying to build something better, with hope and a willingness to step into the unknown.
So wrapping up, this deep dive really has uncovered some amazing intersections. We've seen how old subterranean myths echo in modern plans for resilient cities. We've looked at how ancient cosmic fears connect to scientific prep for solar events. And we've seen Stratty's vision blending surface sustainability with really advanced tech, all linked by this aura of intelligence in GAJR Earth.
Yeah, ultimately, it just highlights how powerful human stories are, how fascinated we are by the unknown, and how driven we are to find solutions, whether through myths and legends or through science and technology. Luke's projects are just a really compelling modern example of that interplay between imagination and practical ingenuity.
And that leaves us with a final thought for you, listening right now. As AI keeps evolving at lightning speed, and as our understanding grows both of ancient lore and cosmic events, what new, maybe unexpected, connections between myth, mystery, and reality might pop up in the future? And what role will our own creativity or ingenuity play in shaping those stories as they unfold? It's a pretty exciting thing to think about, isn't it?
Definitely.
Maybe this dive sparked your own curiosity. Maybe you'll go look into the Kardashev scale or AI ethics, or dig deeper into those subterranean myths yourself. The quest for understanding. Well, it seems like it's a never-ending adventure. There's something undeniably gripping about the idea of hidden worlds. Whether it's, the literal darkness of a cave that stretches way beyond our sight, or those metaphorical underworlds our imaginations conjure up. That sense of something found lying just beneath our feet, it just captivates us, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. That persistent human curiosity about what's unseen, what exists in the shadows. It's like a thread woven through countless cultures and times. Really is.
And that's precisely where we're headed today. This deep dive is all about the fascinating global myths. The esoteric traditions, too, that envision advanced subterranean civilizations.
Right.
We've pulled together a really rich mix of sources, everything from ancient religious texts and, captivating folklore to some, frankly, pretty mind-bending modern theories, even speculative accounts that hint at actual discoveries.
And our mission really is to give you, the listener, a compelling overview of this whole enduring theme. We want to illuminate the surprising connections, the sort of fundamental ideas that echo across different cultures.
Yeah, without getting totally lost in like a maze of overwhelming detail.
Exactly. Consider this your kind of shortcut to getting a solid handle on this truly enthralling subject.
And when we say global, we really mean it. We'll be jumping from, say, the mystical hidden kingdoms of Shambhala and Agartha in Asia, all the way across to the legends of Xibalba and the Grand Canyon stuff in the Americas.
Yeah, those are wild.
And then back again through the intriguing underworlds and, concealed realms of Europe and the Middle East. So, okay, let's start to unpack this. Starting in Asia, that seems right. The ideas about advanced life underground seem particularly rich there, often tied to spiritual enlightenment.
That's right. Asia offers a particularly vibrant tapestry of these myths. They frequently emphasize spiritual wisdom, extraordinary powers, all residing within these hidden places.
Okay, first stop, Shambhala. Central concept in Tibetan Buddhism, right?
Correct. It's described as this mystical hidden kingdom populated by enlightened beings.
Like a utopia.
Very much so. A sanctuary of peace, profound wisdom, believed to be either physically shielded, by the massive Himalayan peaks, or maybe existing on a more subtle, spiritual plane.
What's really compelling, I find, is the prophecy linked to it.
Oh, absolutely. The Kalachakra Tantra. It talks about cycles of time, enlightenment, and it speaks of this lineage of wise kings.
Right, culminating in a final, powerful ruler.
Exactly. This king is prophesied to emerge from Shambhala when the world's in turmoil, basically, to defeat negative forces and kick off a new golden age. It's a potent symbol, hope and renewal coming from this hidden source.
It truly is. And the search for Shambhala, it wasn't just metaphorical for some people.
No, not at all.
Our sources talk about Western seekers, like Nicholas Roerich. He was driven by his spiritual beliefs, looked at places like Beluga Mountain and the Altai as maybe potential gateways. And then, of course, there's that rather unsettling chapter with the Nazi SS expedition to Tibet.
Yeah, that's a dark tangent. Driven by their bizarre occult ideas, this supposed desire to connect with Agartha and Shambhala makes you wonder what they actually thought they'd find.
It really does.
And that brings up a crucial point, how these hidden realms are interpreted.
Right.
In modern Tibetan understanding, Shambhala is often seen as, well, both things. An aspirational spiritual ideal, maybe inner peace you can achieve through practice.
Like a state of mind.
Sort of, yeah. But also, potentially, still a physical place. It's access guarded not just by mountains, but by your spiritual purity. That duality is fascinating. The mystical and the material all mixed up.
Which leads us perfectly into Agartha. Now, Shambhala feels deeply rooted in Asian religion. Agartha seems more like a Western esoteric thing, wouldn't you say, though often placed geographically near Tibet or Mongolia.
That's a fair distinction. These 19th, 20th century esoteric writers, they painted this picture of a huge subterranean world kingdom, populated by an enlightened race with incredibly advanced technology.
What sparked that focus on technology, Shambhala feels more spiritual.
That's the striking thing about Agartha, yeah. This emphasis on both advanced wisdom and technology. A civilization way beyond ours, scientifically, but hidden deep inside the earth.
And the connections to the surface? Tunnels everywhere?
That's the claim. Secret tunnels crisscrossing the globe. Entrances in the Himalayas, the Gobi, maybe under Egypt, even the poles, like a global subway system for the enlightened.
A bit like the internet, but underground and ancient.
Huh, maybe. It reflects, perhaps, the era these ideas emerged in growing global connection, technological leaps projected onto this hidden realm.
And ruling over all this is the king of the world, semi-divine.
According to these accounts, yes. Diligently watching us surface dwellers. Might step in during a crisis.
Ferdinand Ossendowski's book, Beasts, Men, and Gods, that really pushed Agartha into the mainstream, didn't it?
Oh, hugely influential. Published in 1922, he claimed he heard these tales from Mongol lamas, described an amazing network of tunnels under continents.
Housing survivors from Atlantis, even.
That was part of the story, yeah. Illuminated by crystal palaces, this inner light giving them super long lives. The imagery is just incredibly vivid.
Crystal palaces, inner light. It's
Yeah.
very appealing.
Absolutely. These details Ossendowski provided the intrinsic light, the crystal cities, preserving ancient wisdom from lost times. They build this compelling vision of a hidden, superior world.
And the king's powers
Mhm.
over life, death, the elements.
Elevates him to almost godlike status, doesn't it? Reinforces this idea of a powerful, unseen force influencing our world from below. That idea of immense power hidden beneath us. It's quite something to think about.
It really is. And it's interesting how, modern takes often blend Shambhala and Agartha.
Mm-hmm. They merge.
Like Shambhala is Agartha's capital or their allies,
Mm.
and potential entrances just keep multiplying. Tibet, okay, but now the Amazon, Antarctica.
It seems the more we map our own world, the more blank spots we imagine could hide another one. If you connect this to the bigger picture, you see this recurring human thing, right? This longing for a hidden, often better realm, untouched by our problems, accessible through remote or mysterious places.
A sanctuary.
Exactly. A sanctuary from the chaos up here. Speaks to a really deep desire.
Okay, let's journey south now to India. We've got Patala and Nagaloka. Now, Patala, in Hindu cosmology, it's not like the Western idea of hell, is it? Not fire and brimstone.
No, not at all. In fact, it's often described as quite magnificent, even a subterranean heaven, adorned with jewels, lush gardens, amazing palaces.
Wow, why such a positive spin on the underworld?
Well, Patala is this multi-layered netherworld, but yeah, often depicted as desirable. What's really key here are the Nagas.
The serpent beings.
Exactly. Semi-divine, powerful entities associated with wisdom, but also potential danger. They live there. The Naga kings, like Vasuki, they rule over these incredibly opulent, jeweled cities. Bhogavati, for instance, supposedly under the Himalayas, shimmering with treasures. It might reflect the ancient reverence for snakes in India, symbols of fertility, power, connected to the earth.
Subterranean heavens.
Yeah.
I like that phrase. The Bhagavata Purana even says life there offers, more sensory pleasure and wealth than the regular heavens.
That's the description, yeah. Greater enjoyment, more material prosperity. But there's a catch. There's a duality. It's also home to forces that can oppose the gods, cause trouble, upset the cosmic balance.
So bounty and danger side by side.
Precisely. It's an underworld with both. Look at the Mahabharata. The hero Arjuna visits Patala, even marries a Naga princess, Ulupi.
So mortals could actually go there, interact.
But that story certainly suggests it. shows this possibility of direct interaction, even mixing, between mortal and subterranean worlds. And then there's Nagaloka, closely related. An enchanted serpent world full of gems, ruled by majestic Naga kings. Just adds layers to this vision of a vibrant, powerful world beneath us.
And these aren't just abstract ideas floating around, are they? There are local legends all over India, Nepal, pointing to specific lakes, wells, caves as entrances.
Absolutely. That's crucial. It shows how myth and geography get intertwined. It likely fostered the real-world reverence for these places. People still make offerings today, to appease or honor the Naga.
That tangible connection, myth influencing how people see and interact with their actual environment.
Exactly. These beliefs weren't just philosophy. They were embedded in the culture, in rituals, art, everyday life.
Okay, final stop in East Asia, China. The Taoist cave heavens, or Dongtian. Sacred caves leading to realms of immortals.
That's the idea. Especially during the Tang Dynasty, there was this strong belief in enlightened beings, immortals, living in hidden underground paradises, tucked away inside holy mountains. Calm, powerful places.
Like pocket universes.
That's a great way to put it. Existing somewhere between heaven and earth, often hidden by magic, not just regular caves.
And the Taoists actually listed them.
Oh, yeah. Meticulously cataloged, Great Grotto Heavens, Lesser Grotto Heavens, each linked to a specific mountain site, a specific cave entrance, like a spiritual map of these hidden realms.
And inside, what were they like?
The descriptions are just breathtaking. Colorful clouds, fragrant grasses, magical peach trees, the ones giving immortality.
Right, peaches of immortality.
Pools filled with life-giving elixirs. And time flows differently there, like stepping into a living painting, as you said.
And you could potentially find these places through meditation or pilgrimage.
That was the belief. A blend of spiritual effort and physical journey could lead you there.
And this idea still lingers, doesn't it? Legends of hermits, immortals in remote Chinese caves, even now.
It does. It's remarkably persistent in Chinese culture. The Taoist cave heavens are a perfect example of that widespread human fascination, finding doorways to divine or perfect realms right here, inside the earth.
Okay, it's crystal clear that Asia is just brimming with these complex ideas. Advanced civilizations, spiritual havens, all underground. So let's head west.
Yeah.
Europe, the Middle East. Do we find similar themes there?
Well, in the West, the underworld often gets more strongly linked to the realm of the dead. But yeah, we definitely still find compelling myths. Magical races, hidden kingdoms, structured societies thriving below ground.
Let's start up north. Norse mythology.
Right.
Svartalfheim, the underground realm of the dwarves, or sometimes black elves.
Right. And these aren't just, creatures hiding in the dark. They are master smiths, unparalleled craftsmen.
Where did that legendary skill come from?
Well, Svartalfheim is imagined as this huge, complex subterranean network. Mines, forges, treasure halls all connect. Inside their workshops, lit by furnace glow, they supposedly forged the god's greatest artifacts. Think Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, Odin's spear, Gungnir.
The big ones.
The Poetic Edda even mentions a magnificent golden hall of Sindri's family down there. Suggests grand buildings underground. Their skill was often tied to knowing the Earth's secrets, its resources, its magic.
And it's definitely one of the 9 worlds in their cosmology, usually placed deep north, which often meant downwards into the Earth, right?
Exactly. Paints a vivid picture. An advanced, if maybe reclusive, hidden civilization with magical tech, deep knowledge of Earth's secrets.
Do they interact much with the surface?
Occasionally. Often involving heroes getting amazing, divinely crafted gifts from them, but mostly they kept to themselves.
And you can see the echoes later, can't you? Scandinavian folklore, trolls, dwarfs in mountains, guarding treasure.
Absolutely. Svartalfheim feels like a foundation myth, a sort of mythic blueprint for many fantasy subterranean worlds and artisan races we see today, with its own culture, society, underground economy.
Okay, from the Norse lands, let's travel to the Celtic world. Fairy Hills and Woon. This is where the Tuatha De Danann, those powerful sort of otherworldly beings in Irish lore, they retreated underground into the Sea Mounds.
That's the story, yeah. After losing a mythical war, they became the ASC, the fairy folk, basically.
And what were these underground homes like, the Sea Danann?
What's really enchanting here is how they're described. Splendid palaces, courts, all nestled beneath ordinary-looking grassy hills and mounds.
Hidden in plain sight.
Pretty much. These fairy realms are often shown as idyllic paradises, like Tir na Nog, no aging, no sickness, no hunger, just bliss.
Medieval accounts even talk about people encountering these places. Feasts, music.
They do. Beautiful courts, endless feasts. But there was always a warning about time it passed differently for mortals who stayed too long.
Right, the Rip Van Winkle effect.
Something like that. And in Welsh myth, you get Annwn, ruled by King Eran. Similar idea, often linked to the afterlife, sure, but depicted as quite pleasant. Magical cauldrons, endless food, treasures. There's even the story of King Arthur's men going there physically.
So it really blurs that line, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Underworld for the dead versus a magical kingdom underground.
Absolutely. The key takeaway is this recurring Celtic theme. Enchanted civilizations living inside or under ancient mounds, blurring boundaries between mortal and supernatural.
And even today, places like Brunaboyne in Ireland are still linked to the sea day and folklore.
Deeply intertwined. And for generations, people were warned, be respectful around these fairy hills. Don't disturb the powerful folks living below.
Okay, next up, the Greek underworld, Hades' kingdom. Now, this is mainly the realm of the dead, we know that, but it's incredibly detailed, isn't it? Like a fully realized place with geography, society.
That's true. Deep beneath the earth, ruled by Hades himself, the god of the dead. It was seen as vast, complex.
With plains, rivers.
Sprawling plains like the asphodel fields, the 5 dark rivers, imposing fortresses. There were judges for the dead, deciding fates. Specific regions like Elysium for the good, Tartarus for the wicked.
And people thought there were actual entrances, caves.
Supposedly, yeah. Places like Tanarum, Lake Avernus. And remarkably, heroes sometimes went down there while still alive. Odysseus, Heracles.
And the imagery. Hades' palace, Cerberus guarding the gate, the river Styx. It feels like an underground city-state.
It does. It has a monarch, gatekeepers, a justice system. The whole concept of Pluto's realm, this unseen kingdom below, it profoundly influenced later Western ideas about hell and the afterlife.
So even though it's mainly about death, the structure itself, it parallels other myths of subterranean civilizations.
You could say that. It's organized, hierarchical, has its own rules and characteristics, just focused on what happens after life. Although there were hints of maybe nicer spots, like Persephone was sometimes associated with pleasant groves or caves.
Interesting. Okay, our last stop in this region, ancient Egypt, the Duat. This mysterious netherworld Ra, the sun god, travels through each night.
Exactly. And this wasn't just a burial place. It was an immense, complex, subterranean expanse. Lots of different regions, strange beings.
And Ra's journey had a purpose.
A crucial one. The Amduat, the book of that which is in the Duat, details this nightly trip. 12 divisions for the 12 hours of night, each with unique landscapes, gates guarded by serpents, fiery lakes.
Sounds perilous.
It was, but essential for Ra's rebirth at dawn. And for cosmic order, pharaohs had detailed maps and spells in their tombs to help them navigate it too.
Ruled by Osiris, right? And full of gods, spirits, demons, like a whole spiritual civilization down there.
Absolutely, a vast array of beings. And while the Egyptians didn't necessarily imagine, say, a hidden human race living there, they definitely pictured this huge hidden world below, with its own order, even its own kind of Tech-Ra's solar boat, those magic gates.
And what about that idea of secret chambers under the earth?
Yeah.
Like the Hall of Records under the Sphinx.
That's a particularly intriguing aspect. This persistent Egyptian belief in hidden passages, subterranean libraries holding ancient knowledge, that concept resonated hugely in modern esoteric thought.
So, the Duat. Maybe not a human civilization, but a structured kingdom of gods and spirits below, and hinting at hidden wisdom in the earth.
Precisely. A compelling image of the underworld as an organized realm, potentially holding profound secrets.
Okay, so we've journeyed from Asia's spiritual realms to Europe and the Middle East's structured underworlds. The idea of organized societies below ground is clearly potent. Now, let's cross the Atlantic, the Americas. Indigenous underworlds and some more recent stranger mysteries. Do we see similar patterns?
Oh, absolutely. The Americas offer a really rich, diverse perspective. Numerous indigenous cultures have intricate emergence myths coming from the underworld, and complex beliefs about subterranean realms as places of origin or great spiritual power.
Let's start in Mesoamerica. Xibalba, the Maya underworld, the place of fright. Sounds ominous.
It was definitely dreaded. But importantly, it wasn't just chaos. It was envisioned as structured, almost like a city, ruled by the 12 lords of Xibalba.
12 lords, so a hierarchy.
A definite hierarchy. The Popol Vuh, the Maya sacred book, describes it vividly. Lying beneath the surface, often accessed through caves. Specific caves in Guatemala were even pointed to as actual entrances.
Wow. And the hero twins' journey there, through deadly houses.
Yes. navigating these houses with trials, traps. It really emphasizes the organized, almost urban nature of Xibalba. It even had its own ball court for pivotal showdowns.
A terrifying but structured realm. An underground city run by powerful, often malevolent beings.
Pretty much, and the archaeology backs this up, in a way. Ritual caves filled with offerings suggest real attempts to appease these underworld lords.
And some cave systems are still called Xibalba today.
They are. It shows the enduring power of this ancient belief in a literal underworld landscape, complete with inhabitants, even a kind of technology in the traps and trials. Xibalba is a potent example of this ancient American belief in a tangible underworld.
Okay, moving north a bit. The Aztecs. Mictlan, the region of the dead.
Right. Not usually seen as a place for the living, like Agartha might be, but it's a deep, layered realm. Souls had to journey through it for years to reach final rest.
Ruled by Mictlantecuhtli and his wife at the bottom.
Yes, residing in a palace at the deepest level. And the journey involved 9 levels, each with challenges. A devouring river, smashing mountains, winds of obsidian shards.
Sounds rough. A detailed, daunting geography.
Very detailed. While it's mostly for the dead, the 9th level, Chikunamiklan, is sometimes described as a kind of cosmic city with districts. So again, structure within this dark, cavernous realm under the earth.
And the story of Quetzalcoatl going into Mictlan to get bones to create new humans.
That's a key legend. It strongly implies even gods could physically enter this underworld, interact with its rulers. So, like the Maya, the Aztecs saw it as a tangible place you could, conceptually or even physically, visit.
And they thought the entrance was to the north, and caves were symbolic gateways.
Exactly. The Mexica, the Aztecs, located at north, caves were connections, solidifying that link between the surface and the domain below.
Now, this next one seems really fundamental. Chicamostoc, the place of the 7 caves. A shared myth across Mesoamerica.
Yes, hugely significant. A primordial underground place where the ancestors of the Aztecs and related tribes originally came from emerged onto the surface.
So, not an underworld of the dead, but a place of origin, like an earthly womb.
Precisely, a place of genesis. The 7 caves are often seen as representing different ancestral lines or the various tribes living together underground before migrating out.
And Aztec codices actually depict this. A hill with 7 caves, people coming out.
Frequently, it's a powerful narrative, human civilization literally springing from beneath the earth. It resonates with other Native American emergent stories, too.
An underground proto-civilization, a cradle of culture, a refuge.
Exactly. And the fact that certain important sites, like Culhuacan, were revered as maybe being linked to Chicamostoc shows how real and ingrained this was for them.
This idea of emerging from the earth, it seems really common in the Americas.
It is a significant recurring theme. Represents not just a beginning, but a deep connection to the land, often tied to cycles of life, death, rebirth, all linked to the earth itself.
Which brings us nicely to the Hopi and other Pueblo tribes in North America. Their creation stories also involve emerging from underground worlds after cataclysms.
Right, and the story of the ant people, the Anusinum, is particularly compelling.
They sheltered the Hopi underground during the destruction of the Third World.
That's the tradition. In vast subterranean caverns, provided food, survival skills, that they're depicted as generous, benevolent beings.
So the underground here is a sanctuary, a place of wisdom.
Exactly. A haven, not a place of fear. A place where humans met and cooperated with another intelligent race, the ant people.
And the Hopi pinpoint the emergence spot, the Sipapu, in the Grand Canyon.
They do. At the floor of the Grand Canyon, where the little Colorado River joins, a specific spring, literally pointing to a geographical spot as the portal from the underworld.
Wow, so a positive view of the underground. Refuge, connection, cooperation.
A very positive perspective, yes. Stark contrast to somewhere like Xibalba. And the symbolic sipapu in their kivas, their ceremonial chambers, is a constant reminder of this deep connection.
And you mentioned this might have influenced that later Grand Canyon cave story.
It's possible, isn't it? The idea of something ancient and significant hidden within the canyon was already present in Hopi lore long before that 1909 newspaper article.
Okay, let's shift focus now. More modern times in the Americas. Some really wild legends of lost underground cities, starting with that infamous Grand Canyon Egyptian cave story from 1909.
Ah, yes, the Arizona Gazette article claimed a G.E. Kincaid found this huge artificial underground citadel deep in the canyon, full of Egyptian, Asian-style artifacts, mummified giants, hieroglyphs.
Sounds incredible. What was the impact?
Instant sensation. The sheer detail was captivating. Miles of tunnels, granaries, a shrine with a Buddha-like idol. It suggested this ancient link between the East and North America.
But the Smithsonian denied it, said it was a hoax.
Swiftly and unequivocally. The consensus is it was fabricated. But it captured the public imagination anyway. Still fuels conspiracy theories today about a cover-up.
You can see the appeal, though. A secret Egyptian cave in the Grand Canyon. Irresistible for adventurers, mystery lovers.
Absolutely. Even though nobody's ever verified it, despite many attempts, it's this fascinating mix of American frontier mystery, the global ancient civilization motif, and as we said, maybe echoes of the Hopi emergence myth, too.
It really shows how one sensational story, even if fake, can create a lasting legend, right?
Right.
Blending real places with these imaginative possibilities people want to believe.
Precisely. Tapping into that yearning for the extraordinary.
Then there's Akakor, the Amazon legend. Carl Brugger's book, Tutuka Nara's claims. This sounds elaborate.
Oh, incredibly elaborate. A hidden city in the Amazon supposedly built 14,000 years ago by extraterrestrials, the Uga Mangalala.
Extraterrestrials.
Okay.
Part of a network of underground cities.
That's the claim. Akakor, Akakim. And that these founders also built surface cities like Cusco. Akakor itself was described as this vast subterranean metropolis. Gold, high-tech.
And they retreated underground when Europeans arrived.
To preserve their secrets, yeah. Now, the story unraveled. The expeditions led by Tutunka Nara were disastrous, and he was eventually exposed as a German fraud, Gunther Hawk.
Ouch.
But the legend proved surprisingly sticky. It even influenced pop culture think, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Right.
So dismissed by researchers as pseudo-history, obviously, but the Amazon is just so vast, so unexplored, and there are real caves like Cueva de los Tallos. It keeps the legend alive in some circles.
A real cautionary tale, then.
Yeah.
Hoaxing mixed with genuine indigenous myths of underground origin.
Exactly. The Amazon, with its scale, its history, its mysteries, it's fertile ground for these legends of hidden civilizations to grow and persist.
Okay, next stop, Death Valley. The Habusus legend. An ancient advanced race under the Panamint Mountains, linked to the Paiute.
Yes, the Paiute legend speaks of them, sometimes linked to a kingdom of Shinawav. Tales often describe encounters with fair-skinned, tall people in underground caverns with horses and this weird perpetual light source.
What are the common details in these stories?
It's the consistency that's eerie, that strange, soft light always mentioned, the tall, fair people, the horses and leather goods underground. Plus, stories from prospectors stumbling on entrances, finding mummies, gold, then getting lost trying to go back.
And no one can relocate these entrances. People disappeared.
That's part of the legend, yeah, adds to the mystery. And then you get these links to Atlantis or Lemuria popping up, whispers of advanced tech electric lights, flying canoes.
So it blends indigenous lore with maybe some adventure fantasies.
Seems like a mix, yes. Shinawav, in Paiute belief, might be more like a ghost land. Then you add these prospector stories, maybe embellished, maybe not. Plus, the mystery of U.S. military closures in the area fuels speculation, too.
Death Valley itself is such a dramatic backdrop for these kinds of stories.
It really is. Stark, challenging environments seem to invite tales of hidden wonders and lost histories.
And finally, in the Americas, we land at Mount Shasta, California. Iconic place, especially in New Age circles. The legend of Telos. The hidden city of Lemurians.
That's the one. Lemuria, the mythical lost continent in the Pacific. Telos is supposedly this multi-level city deep inside Mount Shasta, home to maybe 1.5 million Lemurian survivors.
Using crystal energy, advanced tech.
That's the description. And the Lemurians are pictured as tall, graceful, highly evolved beings, sometimes seen on the surface incognito.
Where did this legend come from?
Its roots go back to the late 19th century, writers like Frederick Spencer Oliver, but it really took off in the 20th century with figures like Guy Ballard, various channelers.
It's still going strong.
Oh, yeah. Mainstream science dismisses it as fantasy, of course, but Shasta has this persistent reputation for weird sightings, strange lights. It fuels the mystique.
It's become a pilgrimage site for seekers, hasn't it? Looking for cave entrances, like Pluto's cave.
Definitely a hot spot. Telos is this fascinating blend, really. Ancient legend, Lemuria, the hollow earth idea, utopianism, all mixed together in a modern spiritual context.
And the mountain itself just seems to invite it.
Its geology, its presence, its history as a spiritual place. It's a natural focus for these legends of hidden realms, ancient wisdom, a better existence inside the earth.
Okay, so from ancient emergent stories to modern imaginative tales, the Americas are packed with subterranean legends. Let's shift now to the more, shall we say, formal, modern esoteric theories. and the people who actually explored the idea of an inner Earth. How did these ideas evolve more recently?
The modern era saw a really fascinating, often pretty unconventional evolution, blending scientific speculation, formalized occult beliefs, even supposed first-hand accounts of journeys inside the Earth.
Let's start with the early Hollow Earth science guys, like Edmund Halley, the astronomer, and especially John Cleve Sims Jr.
Right. Sims famously pushed the idea of a hollow, habitable Earth, multiple concentric shells inside, big openings at the north and south poles leading to inner worlds.
And he actually tried to get an expedition funded to prove it.
He campaigned hard for it, yes. His theories were mostly dismissed by mainstream science at the time, but they really grabbed the popular imagination.
Influence fiction, right? Jules Verne.
Hugely. Verne's journey to the center of the Earth owes a lot to these ideas. They laid the imaginative groundwork for a literal, explorable world inside ours, often with strange beings, maybe an inner sun.
And these ideas spread surprisingly far, even attracting occultists like Helena Blavatsky, and, disturbingly, the Nazi Vril Society.
It's a strange web. Blavatsky was interested. The Vril Society believed in harnessing some inner Earth energy. And incredibly, there was even a resolution put to the U.S. Congress in 1913 asking for money to fund an expedition to explore inside the Earth.
Wow, it's amazing how these scientifically shaky ideas could get such traction.
It really shows that intersection of fringe science and esoteric belief. How imaginative ideas, especially ones echoing old myths and desires, can sometimes gain surprising momentum, even if briefly.
Then there's Theosophy, the Ascended Masters concept, late 19th century.
Right. Blavatsky and others. They synthesized Eastern and Western spiritual ideas, introduced this concept of a hidden hierarchy of enlightened guides the masters of wisdom.
Guiding humanity from secret sanctuaries, initially in the Himalayas.
Initially, yeah. But later, these sanctuaries got increasingly linked to Shambhala and Agartha.
So Theosophy specifically brought these subterranean realms into their system.
They played a huge role in that, yes, explicitly integrating them. They argued Agartha especially wasn't just legend, it was a real place, maybe physical, maybe etheric, inhabited by advanced beings, the masters, possessing deep wisdom, secretly guiding human evolution.
Blavatsky mentioned Agartha and Shambhala.
She did, using that spelling sometimes. And later theosophists like Alice Bailey elaborated. Bailey even described an etheric Shambhala over the Gobi Desert, like a spiritual counterpart to the physical Agartha below.
So this idea of a benevolent, highly evolved inner Earth really took hold in occult circles.
Definitely. And it fit nicely with beliefs about Atlantis or Lemuria survivors hiding inside the Earth. These places became centers of spiritual power, hidden knowledge.
Not just mystery kingdoms anymore.
No, they became key parts of a spiritual quest. For enlightenment, hidden knowledge, focal points for prophecy, initiation, hope for a golden age guided by these unseen masters. Even the Nazi interest shows the weird, potentially dangerous allure these ideas held for some seeking secret power.
Okay, let's talk about one of the most persistent modern Hollow Earth stories. Admiral Byrd, the supposed 1947 Arctic flight.
Ah, the secret diary narrative. Yes, it's incredibly enduring.
Claims he flew into a big warm opening at the North Pole, saw lush landscapes, forests, lakes, even a mammoth.
That's the story. And eventually encountered an advanced civilization in a crystal city inside the Earth, Agarthans.
Who warned about atomic bombs, pleaded for peace, then swore Byrd to secrecy.
Exactly. It's a compelling tale, isn't it? Merges Agartha with the mid-century UFO craze. Gets credibility from Byrd being a respected explorer. The peace message gave it relevance too.
But is it true? What do his actual records say?
That's the crucial part. Byrd's documented diaries, his flight logs from that time, they contain nothing extraordinary like that. The secret diary is widely considered a hoax by researchers, probably cooked up decades after he died.
Yet the story persists,
Yeah.
popularized in the 60s by writers like Raymond Bernard.
Very persistent, despite lack of evidence denials from his family. It's fascinating how it's evolved, too. Some versions move the opening to the South Pole, talk about a rainbow city inside.
Why does it endure so strongly?
I think it taps into that deep desire for contact with a more advanced, maybe more enlightened civilization within our own planet. Hope for solutions to our problems. The allure of a hidden paradise, guided by wise beings. It just captures the imagination.
Okay, now for something completely different. The Shaver Mystery. 1940s. Richard Shaver's pulp stories in amazing stores.
Bizarre is the word, yes. Shaver claimed he had personally found a subterranean civilization, but these weren't wise masters. They were the Diro detrimental robots.
Detrimental robot.
Mutated, degenerate descendants of some pre-Atlantean race, living in caverns, using ancient high-tech for evil.
Evil how?
According to Shaver, they abducted, tortured, mentally influenced surface humans using ray technology from underground. He claimed he lived with them, seeing their cruel society, their twisted experiments, their resentment of us up here.
That's deeply unsettling.
Yeah.
A total contrast to Agartha or Telos.
A stark contrast. It introduced this much darker, sinister vision of the inner earth, fear, paranoia, the idea of a technologically advanced but totally malevolent race lurking just below, secretly messing with our lives.
And some people even thought UFOs might be their ships.
That speculation added another layer of unease, blurring lines between different fringe beliefs. The Shaver mystery really represents the inner Earth as a nightmare scenario, a potent reminder that these myths can reflect our deepest fears too, not just our hopes.
Right. Okay, finally, let's touch on modern conspiracy theories. This is where subterranean lore gets really tangled up with UFOs, secret government bases, even reptilian humanoids underground.
It's a sprawling landscape now, yeah. Beliefs in vast, secret government underground cities and tunnels linked to places like Denver Airport, the Greenbrier Bunker. That's a big part of it.
How do these build on the older ideas?
They often have this technophobic, politically charged feel, reflecting modern anxieties about government secrecy, surveillance, hidden agendas. The idea of governments contacting inner Earth civilizations, whether aliens, ancients, or reptilians, and covering it up, it echoes older themes of hidden knowledge, powerful elites, but with a modern, distrustful spin.
But there's still the spiritual side, too. New Age channeling from Agartha or Telos. Inner world maps online.
Oh yeah, that continues strongly. Messages about reunification with the surface, elaborate, often fanciful maps showing Agartha's capital, tunnel entrances. Modern esoteric thought has really amplified and diversified these old myths, even bringing in ancient astronaut theory. Maybe the gods came from inside the Earth.
It's a complex tapestry now, isn't it?
Absolutely. Ancient folklore, fiction, fringe science, conspiracy narratives, all woven together, shows how our fascination with what lies beneath just keeps adapting and finding new ways to express itself.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
wow, it's striking how persistent, how widespread this fascination with subterranean civilizations really is, across cultures, across history.
It really seems to tap into something fundamental in us, doesn't it? That mix of fear of the unknown darkness below and the hope that incredible secrets, lost wisdom, maybe even salvation is hidden just out of sight, waiting.
And these myths, whether taken literally or as metaphors for the afterlife, spiritual journeys, origins, they've clearly played a huge role in shaping cultures.
Absolutely. And while science has mostly pushed literal belief in advanced underground civilizations to the fringe, the core idea persists. It just keeps adapting, finding new forms in our modern world.
Exploring all these stories, it really has felt like a journey through the human imagination itself. We've seen such an incredible range of inner worlds, utopian paradises full of enlightenment and high tech, and terrifying, malevolent realms with monstrous beings.
The whole spectrum. And those real-world places linked to the legends, Shasta, the Himalayas, caves all over, they still draw seekers and believers today.
And while there's no scientific proof, of Agartha or Telos down there,
Right, no hard proof of that.
we have found amazing, real, human-built underground cities, Dompuyu, places like that, an incredible life thriving deep in the earth where we never expected it.
Exactly. So while maybe not the myths themselves, these real discoveries show the subterranean realm isn't empty. It holds its own profound, often surprising wonders.
It's almost poetic, isn't it? Our ancestors, without our science, filled that mystery below with their biggest dreams and deepest fears.
Well said.
And even now, in our supposedly rational age, that idea, hidden marvels, profound secrets just beneath our feet, it stubbornly hangs on, living just under the surface of our collective consciousness, always inviting us to wonder, what if? And maybe, just maybe, feel a little flicker of anticipation when we look into the darkness below.